Honourable members, shall we pray? Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favour upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic, endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Raise the effort of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speak the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, we don't have any message from the President, neither do we have any formal communication from the Speaker. We will then jump to item 4 in today's order paper, which is correction of votes and proceedings and official report. We will begin with votes and proceedings. Votes and proceedings. We start from page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Yes, Honourable Member for South.
Mr. Speaker, page 9. I've been marked absent, but I'm aware that at the request of the Speaker, a number of us had to be in the north, particularly in Yendi yesterday in the morning, to support him to pay a courtesy call on the Yana Abubakari earlier at Nalirgu. Therefore, legitimately, I'm to be marked absent with permission since I was performing parliaments. I wrote. I'm not one of those who doesn't know the process. But Mr. Speaker, whilst you were busy looking at the votes, this aspiring running mate, I don't know who is ahead of who, whether it's the Honorable Chair or the Honorable Minister for Education. They were in close consultation. I want to know who is ahead of who. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. But
Honourable Member for Tamale South, I didn't hear your last discussion. Which page are you referring to? Yes, Honourable.
Right, Honourable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I can confirm that our colleague indeed duly asked permission and should have been marked absent with permission. So if the table office can take care of that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Deputy Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think there's a ruling on this matter by Mr. Speaker. I think there's a ruling on this matter by Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
They are leading you into trouble, Mr. Speaker. So you place that matter on ice until Mr. Speaker comes. But the decision is yours.
Yes. Minority Whip, Deputy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, you can see Parliament have been divided into two, half in the north, half in the south. Even Friday, some of us are going to the north. So what will happen? Does it mean we should write or they will mark us? Because we are going to do the same parliamentary work there.
You see, I believe, as we've always been saying, it's like a member traveling outside officially. You still have to put in official permission so that the records can capture. We are aware that a lot of our colleagues are in the north, but officially, we don't have anything on the record. So we need to have those things on record so that the table can also rely on that. So, like the Deputy Majority Leader said, I think we will hold on with that. The Speaker himself mentioned it. But since we don't have anything on record by way of documentation, I think I'll find it very difficult to respond to this particular issue. Like I said, it's like you traveling outside. It's official duty, but yet you have to put in official permission. So that's my position.
There are two different things. What my colleague, the Deputy Whip, said is different from my position. Honorable Haruna did put in a request, exactly. The problem was that we didn't sit on Friday, and his request was supposed to have been worked on. So that's why I was pleading with you that his case is completely different from those who went to Tamale without putting in an official request for absence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I would direct the table office to cross-check their documentation. If indeed there is documentation to that effect, they will correct the report. So we move to page 9. Page 10. Page number 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. Page 20. Page number 21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24. Page 25. Page 26. Page 27. Page 28. Page 29. Page 30. Page number 31. Page 32. 33, page 34, page 35, page 36, page 37, page 38, page 39, page 40. Yes, honorable member.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Joseph Kwame Kuma. Page 40, item number XXII. XXII. Table, this XXII. We have District Finance Officer, Tatali District Assembly. Yes, the D should be capital. Tatali, the district is small d. They should be capital.
Honorable, will you come again? Speak up. Speak with the
Item
mic, please.
page 40. Page 40.
Yes.
Item number XXIII. Mr. Bilal Adam. Mr. Bilal Adam, District Finance Officer. Tatali District Assembly, the district to be capital D.
Very well. Very well. Table. Can we take note of this? So we turn to 41. 42 page. Are you up again? Yes. Honorable Kuma. Yes, let's hear you.
This one too, correction, page 42. Item number XIII. Mr. Salifu Mohammed, District Coordinating Officer. That's what is written, but I'm sure it should be, for consistency's sake, it should be District Coordinating Director. District Coordinating Director instead of Officer.
Very well. That is XLVIII.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Honorable member, do you know him personally? Or you are just making inference from?
Yes, personally.
We always call district coordinating director.
Mr. Speaker, the moment coordinating director, we don't have coordinating officer. We have coordinating directors. Please.
Yes, but our information is that they fill the form with coordinating officer. So how do you reconcile that? Anyway, we will check and make appropriate corrections. So we move to 43. Page 44. Page 45. Page number 46. And finally, page 47. Honourable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of yesterday, Tuesday, 13 June 2023, is hereby adopted as the true records of proceedings. We have the Tuesday, 29th March 2022, Tuesday, 29th March 2022, official report. Honourable members, I take it again. Tuesday, 29th March 2022, official report. Honourable members, in the absence of any corrections, The official report of Tuesday, 29th March 2022 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Okay. Very well. Yes. Honourable members, I believe we are going to have committee of the whole, and it is not just going to be not committee of the whole. We will have a closed sitting, and to that extent, I will employ the media and other visitors to leave the ground. And on that note, let me acknowledge our daughters from St. Louis Secondary School, from Kumasi, who have come all the way to witness proceedings in the House. Honorable Forukrum, have you seen your school? Yes, they are here to witness proceedings. Again, we also have ECG Montessori School, Committee A Tema. We are also welcome, we acknowledge you, as well as Yaudonko Salvation JHS Akim Akroso. Yaudonko. Yes, Yaudonko Salvation JHS Akim Akroso. We acknowledge all of you. I hope if you want to witness proceedings, you have to hold on a bit. Excuse us for some minutes before you come back to the gallery. So the media and all other members in the gallery, please, we plead with you to excuse us to have a closed sitting committee of the whole. So we will suspend for committee of the whole. Yes. Yes, leader. Yes, leader. Leader, may I respectfully come to you for direction?
Speaker, if you permit the presentation of papers on the order paper, page 3 of the other
Page
paper.
3.
Page 3 of the other paper, yes.
Honorable members, let me invite you to page 3. Page 3 in today's order paper, which will commence public business. Page 3, we are commencing public business. Presentation of papers, item 8, by the Attorney General Minister for Justice. 8A. 8A. Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Attorney General is here with us. So if you indulge her, you do the presentation of the paper on behalf of the Minister.
Very well. Leave granted. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, due to the nature of regulations, may I ask if the necessary pre-laying processes have been completed before the regulations made?
But pre-laying process.
Mr. Speaker, this is really harmless matter that has been discussed. And so the needful has been done already.
So, Honorable Deputy Attorney General, you do as the honors.
Copyright Amendment Regulations 2023.
Honorable members, the paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Committee on Subsidiary Legislation for consideration and report. We now turn to 8B by the Minister for Education.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Minister for Education will stand in to present the papers on behalf of the Minister.
Yes.
Annual Statement by the Audit Committee of the St. Louis College of Education for the year 2021.
Honorable members, the paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Committee on Education for consideration and report. So we move to II of B.
Annual Statement by the Audit Committee of the Akachi College of Education for the year 2021.
Honorable members, the paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Committee on Education for consideration and report. II.
Annual Statement by the Audit Committee of the St. John Bosco's College of Education for the year 2021.
Honorable members, the paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Committee on Education for consideration and report. We turn to IV.
Annual Statement by the Audit Committee of the Ghana Library Authority for the year 2022.
Honorable members, the paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Committee on Education for consideration and report. I believe we will skip C. Leader, I think we will skip the C.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we will skip C until it will be done after the report is finalized. And I think at the same time we will also skip D. and come to the addendum order paper, item 1.
Honourable members, let's turn to the addendum paper. Addendum paper, item listed 1, presentation of papers by the chairman of the Committee of Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs.
Report of the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs on the Interstate Succession Bill 2022.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is for distribution to honourable members. Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I understand you have a statement with you. So if you can take one of the statements while the members have time to read the reports that have been circulated, then we can deal with them subsequently.
Honourable members, we are now moving to statement. We have 3 statements that have been admitted by the Speaker, and we will begin with one from Honourable Dr. Zinato Ajima-Rawlings on oversight of the security sector, challenges and opportunities for improvement. So, Honourable Member for Krote Kole, Honourable Zinato Ajima-Rawlings, you may take the floor and read your statement.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to make a statement on parliamentary oversight of the security sector, challenges and opportunities for improvement. In considering parliamentary oversight of the security sector, the issue of capacity of those cloaked with that responsibility cannot be avoided. The security sector oversight is not only about the budget, scrutiny and approval, but also about the conditions of service of the security service personnel and their conduct, as well as civil-military relations. This brings up the subject of the 3 A's: authority, ability, and attitude. And these are simply whether, as members of parliament, we have A, authority. This is in the Constitution, Article 1033. Committees of parliament shall be charged with such functions, including the investigation and inquiry into such activities and administration of ministries and departments as Parliament may determine. And such investigations and inquiries may extend to proposals for legislation. And our standing orders 155, 158, specific to the Defence and Interior Committee, 190 to 212. B, ability. Do we have the capacity and technical expertise or the relevant supporting staff to fulfill our role? Attitude. Do we have the resources available to us to effectively conduct oversight responsibilities? One of the issues that has arisen is the concern of the security sector's need for confidentiality and how the total disclosure of some components of the activities might pose a national security threat or possibly endanger the lives of troops deployed in certain locations, which documents need to remain secret, and which can safely be open to full scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, the qualification and eligibility criteria for a Member of Parliament are defined in Article 94, which state that a person shall not be qualified unless he is a citizen of Ghana, has attained the age of 21 years and is a registered voter, he is resident in the constituency for which he stands as a candidate for election or has resided there for a total period of not less than 5 years out of 10 years immediately preceding the election. C, has paid all his taxes or made arrangements satisfactorily for the appropriate authority for the payment of his taxes. Citizenship, residency, tax compliance, and age. However, there's no requirement regarding specific expertise. However, on becoming a Member of Parliament, one is expected to provide effective oversight of different sectors. Mr. Speaker, this could sometimes result in ineffective scrutiny of the various sectors, especially when greater technical expertise is required to scrutinize budgets and activities of MDAs, and indeed makes a greater case for longevity in the House as it tends to result in capacity building over the years. The fact that Parliament has oversight means that we have a responsibility to probe the affairs of the security sector. However, the modus operandi of the security sector is often cloaked in secrecy and restricted access to information. This naturally creates a tension between the legislative arm of government and the security sector due to the dichotomy of philosophy. So the question is, how do the two institutions find an acceptable compromise between the need for accountability and the need for secrecy? What kind of legal work in ECOWAS, for example, needs to be done to tackle transnational issues of security and the legislative oversight? Can the ECOWAS Commission, for example, develop a new law on defense secrecy, or Pan-African Parliament have further collaboration on the same? Mr. Speaker, at a time like this, when the armed forces in some of our neighboring countries are struggling with internal security, and in some cases have lost the battle against terrorism, we have a narrow window within which to ensure that we eliminate as many of the underlying factors that create an enabling environment for violent extremism and terrorism to thrive. Mr. Speaker, the crisis in Boko, which in other jurisdictions may have been given a different name, given the fact that there are civilians wielding assault rifles and using them against one another and our security service personnel. The taxpayer is now footing the bill for the diversion of resources from the protection of our territorial integrity to internal conflict based on chieftaincy and political chess games, with a huge undercurrent of criminality that is affecting security, safety, and the lives and livelihoods of communities that once upon a time coexisted peacefully. The sobering reality, Mr. Speaker, is that unless the reality of the situation in Boko is addressed dispassionately, tactfully, and with the highest interest of our country at the forefront of matters, it threatens to be the gateway for terrorism and violent extremism to Ghana. Every year, the Defense and Interior Committee reviews the budget and presents a report for the House to approve its sector budget. Yet apart from salaries, the Ministry of Finance fails to release allocation. Mr. Speaker, to pay salaries without providing the releases for CAPEX and goods and services is not enough of is a poor use of limited resources. Increasing recruitment and enlistment without concurrently tooling our services is akin to going into a gunfight with a knife. Mr. Speaker, the Select Committee on Defense and Interior ought to be given the resources to embark on inspection of the military installations and other security services to ascertain whether the resources that we have approved of over the last few years have been channeled into the various units and forward operating bases. The military personnel are to be housed in their barracks and not living in the communities, as is too often the case. There has been an unfortunate trend of attacks on security personnel and vice versa. Mr. Speaker, this is an affront to the principles of statehood. At the time when we had several police and military personnel being attacked or killed by civilians, Unfortunately, the trend only worsened as members of the public also became bolder in their assault, and vice versa. Mr. Speaker, we must be mindful not to create tensions between the citizenry and the security service personnel that, should the occasion call for it, they would hesitate to put their lives down in defense of this country and her people. The security service personnel are meant to ultimately protect the citizens of the state. Some of the challenges include executive dominance, underfunding of Parliament, under-resourced research departments in Parliament, a high attrition rate affecting the institutional memory, lack of trust between the two institutions, poor communication between security services, Parliament, and the public, political interference in the role of the armed forces and other security services, which undermines their image in the eyes of the public, the appointment of heads of security services, including the IGP and CDS by the President, without in-camera parliamentary scrutiny, and an unhealthy tension between the police service and the armed forces of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, some recommendations include that the National Commission on Civic Education embark in collaboration with Public Relations Directorate of the Security Service Agencies to embark on public awareness campaigns with regards to improving in Ghana. Mandatory capacity building for MPs in general on the Select Committee on Defense and members with the necessary technical expertise to interrogate matters relating to security and intelligence. These can be undertaken by the Parliamentary Training Institute in collaboration with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, for example, the Ghana Armed Forces Staff Command and Staff College, or a quota of MPs for the proposed war college that the President referred to in his speech in the WASAT this year. Legacy documents compiled by the committee clerks and committees, which comprise of a compilation of all work done by the committee during that 4-year period, which would help to bridge the gap between successive parliaments and preserve institutional memory so that new members of the committee can take advantage of this information. In addition to that, regular briefings of the security personnel, of the heads of security services to the arm of Parliament in order to keep us abreast with the landscape of security in the country. Feedback on performance of equipment approved by the House and procured for the various security services, for example, the fire service platforms and the armored personnel carriers, for example. An audit of recruitment processes and guidelines to improve the processes and minimize political interference. Greater scrutiny of procurement processes and awarding of defense and interior and other contracts in the security sector, including joint committees, finance and defense and interior settings to scrutinize contracts and loan agreements relating to the security sector. Verification of facts before journalists report on issues, and if incidents are not reported objectively, persons must provide the public with a detailed, full facts referring to previous reports. This means that there should be a liaison from the security agencies to deal with the media on matters relating to the security services. Constitutional review to allow Parliament to vet the service chiefs in camera, since they are also appointed by the President. Attachment of serving or retired security service personnel to the Committee on Defense and Interior to provide technical support to the members of the committee. Building positive relations with defense and security sector. Monitoring of defense projects. Consider program-based versus itemized-based budgets. Having specific questionnaires used during monitoring visits of members of Parliament to allow for uniformity and measurable performance indicators. Special budgets for monitoring and evaluation visits of members of the committees to the various installations, and social activities or tailor-made joint training sessions between members of Parliament and security service personnel to build bridges of greater understanding and cooperation between our two institutions. Mr. Speaker, in summary, is only to say that the oversight of the security sector, which is fundamental to the legislative arm of government, and specifically the Select Committee on Defense and Interior, can be enhanced if we will build the capacity of the members on the committee, if we will ensure that we have legacy documents to ensure that there's institutional memory that can be tapped into by subsequent members of Parliament who will join the various committees. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Very well, thank you very much. So, honorable members, yes, honorable member for Northton.
I'm most grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important statement, which has been eloquently delivered by the Honorable Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rawlings. Mr. Speaker, oversight of the security sector, challenges and opportunities for improvement, a very crucial matter which requires our collective attention. Mr. Speaker, I'm not surprised that the maker of the statement presents a very well-researched, very well-nuanced and insightful perspective on the matter. She herself being the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee. But even more so, Mr. Speaker, a very fine soldier's daughter. And so, being a soldier's daughter, she definitely has even more insight on the matter in issue. And I'm not surprised that she has presented us with this very insightful paper. Mr. Speaker, the matter she raises about how prepared we are as a House and as members of Parliament to carry out oversight is not limited to only the Defense and Interior Committee. It's a matter that the House should look at more seriously, right at the level of the Speakership, the Parliamentary Service Board. When we come here, there is a general orientation, Mr. Speaker, that is carried out. But at the level of the committees, how often are members prepared, taking through specialized courses, specialized programs, so that the technicalities that are required. But as she rightly said, under Article 94, the qualification to be a member of Parliament is very generic, quite basic. The threshold is quite low. Sound mind, 21 years and above, you are a citizen, you have paid your taxes, no commission of inquiry has indicted you. That's it. But you are expected to carry out specialized roles. And if we don't have members of Parliament who may have extensive knowledge in that sector, then the committee's oversight role suffers. And so it's a matter that requires attention. It relates to continuous training, it relates to capacity building, it relates to expertise. And sometimes I note that even as ranking member on my committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, sometimes where we spend resources, we may be attending other people's conferences, other people's priorities, and we may be losing sight sometimes about building capacity. How do we encourage members of Parliament to specialize? Even in that sector, people can look at the areas to do with budgeting. Others can look at other technical matters. For example, about peace and security, about peace operations, about intelligence gathering, and all of that. And on the committee, you have different members who are specializing in different areas, and that will enrich the collective output of the committee. The Speaker, the Honourable Member of Parliament raises a matter that has to do with clearance, the high clearance required for some of the matters, and she talks about the tension between Parliament, which is for full transparency, which is for openness, and then an institution which really thrives on secrecy, confidentiality, need to know, and all of those terminologies. And that brings to mind, Mr. Speaker, a matter which has been pending in this House for a long time, which is the need to have another layer added to our committees, and that layer is the Intelligence Committee. It's been pending for a long time, and I'm glad that the new standing orders, the draft that I have seen, takes account of that, so that we will not only have a committee for defense and interior, but we are going to have a committee for intelligence, where those who serve on that committee will have higher clearance. It's not a committee that anybody can serve, so that some of the matters relating to national security that require a certain high sense of circumspection, we can have members serve on that committee. Mr. Speaker, I must also add that this has been the longest dispensation since the military intervened in our democracy. The last time was in 1981, and I do not want to talk about how fortuitous this whole development is. The leader of that intervention is the father of the maker of our statement. May his soul rest in peace. Of course, he has as a great legacy returning us to a democratic order. But that was 42 years ago, and that tells us that 42 years on, there is now a certain acceptance that democracy is the way to go, and that we need to accommodate each other. So I like the fact that this statement is also drawing attention to what we can do to address the needs of the military. I think it's not acceptable that we are only appearing to take care of their wages and compensation, and then year after year, capex, there is a shortfall, and then there's also a shortfall in their goods and services. That there are many years that the finance ministry does not provide them. I know that across the board you say that it's a general malaise, but at least we must specialize and prioritize, have attention for certain institutions, because we know the threat that can pose to destabilizing our democracy, interrupting our democracy. So I think that we should look at it. Some institutions, like the Ghana Armed Forces, should not be suffering this perennial, if you like, cuts in their budget. But as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, let me use this opportunity to celebrate the Ghana Armed Forces. They remain one of the finest institutions that this country has produced. The United Nations is always singling out the Ghana Armed Forces for praise. We are always amongst the top 10 troop contributing nations when it comes to peace operations in various theaters of conflict across the globe. And the Ghana Armed Forces has remained very professional. They have been very, very supportive in maintaining peace and stability. In other jurisdictions around us, the armed forces have not been able to hold their own. Burkina Faso, for example, is gone. The insurgents have taken over. Mali is in turmoil. But here, the defenders of our territorial integrity have done so well, together with all of us, the political leadership, in at least maintaining peace and stability, even if we still have issues with economic transformation, issues with youth unemployment and all of that. At least our territorial integrity, our peace and stability has been guaranteed and protected. And for that, I want to celebrate the Ghana Armed Forces and all the commanders-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces we have had over the decades. I commend the maker of the statement, and I hope that we shall all do more to carry out our oversight duties as members of Parliament. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Let him come to leadership. Yes.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very, very important statement made by our colleague, Honourable Dr. Zaneto Rawlings, not Zenato, Zaneto Ajiman Rawlings. I hear the Deputy Majority Leader always say Zenato. So whilst he's here, I'm just trying to say that it's Zaneto Ebuje. So pronounce properly, Zaneto. Mr. Speaker, I also want to take the opportunity to commend all the men and women
Honorable Leader.
Yes. Just for the record, I don't remember ever wrongly pronouncing the name of my respected colleague. So I just want my colleague Abuja to withdraw that aspect of his submission and go ahead with his submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, he didn't even say who I said. The name I said, he pronounced wrongly. So there's no case at this moment. There's no case because he never told me who I said he pronounced wrongly. So thank you for the. No, Mr. Speaker. Does he have the opportunity to come on point of order twice on the same issue? I don't think so. So I'll proceed until you stop, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, hold on. You are accusing him of pronouncing somebody's name wrongly. And he said he didn't. So just do the honors and let's move on.
Mr. Speaker, I've been doing cross-examination for more than 10 years. I will not respond to this bait. What I'm saying is that he claims that I often pronounce that name wrongly. What you mentioned. And I'm saying that withdraw that aspect of the submission unless you have some evidence to support your claim. It is never correct. So withdraw and go ahead with your comment. That's all.
Yes. Leader, just withdraw and let's
Mr. Speaker, at least I said you pronounced a certain name. You haven't even mentioned it. So what am I withdrawing? So mention the name you said you haven't pronounced wrongly, then I'll withdraw. So mention it. Go ahead.
I think this is right. You have to rule on it and direct him because you have directed him to do the needful. If you would want to overindulge him, so be it. I leave it to you.
Leader, just withdraw. Just withdraw and let's withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw what he said I've accused him of not doing.
What did you say?
Well, I don't even remember what he said I said. So if he says it, then I'll remember, then I'll withdraw. But since he didn't mention, I have withdrawn what he said I have wrongly accused him of. Case closed.
Yeah, he should be a gentleman. He says that the honorable member for colleague Clotilde's name, I often pronounce it wrongly. And I'm saying that he should withdraw that statement. That I often, well, that's fine. No problem. That's fine. Correct me. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who made the statement, he says, I often pronounce her name wrongly. And I'm saying that he should withdraw that statement that I often pronounce her name wrongly from the record. He should withdraw it. If he has forgotten, then I've reminded him. He should withdraw and proceed with his comment. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I take your directive. A number of colleagues in this house, I'll get there, have wrongly, and it's on record, pronounced the name of the honorable member, Honorable Dr. Ezaneto Ajman Rawlings, calling it Zenato, and the record to prove. And I'm saying that I have heard in the past, the respected deputy leader also said Zenato instead of Zaneto. He's saying he's never pronounced it Zenato. This is Zaneto. Let the darkness cease. Zaneto. Oh, I said Zaneto is the name. Mr. Speaker, all of a sudden he's remembered. But I've withdrawn. Mr. Speaker, I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate the leader. Oh, Mr. Speaker, I said that I've heard him. When he says he's never pronounced that name wrongly, I withdraw. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate our men and women in uniform. who are the subject of our colleagues' statement, which is very important. Whilst my colleague was making the statement, whilst my colleague who contributed just before me was making the statement, he also commended the founder of the Fourth Republic, who is the founder of the NDC. And yes. I said the founder of the Fourth Republic is Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, whose name actually boldly appears in the Constitution, the Fourth Republican Constitution, rightly so. And that will go down the history of our country. Mr. Speaker, it's not controversial at all. It's not controversial at all. This says that made on this 8th day of May, 1992, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, Chairman of the Provisional National Defense Committee. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I didn't realize that PNDC is even available in our Constitution, but some people say we shouldn't listen. Mr. Speaker, let me go on. The subject of this statement is very important, Mr. Speaker. The Majority Leader has always recommended that the committee system we operate in Parliament here creates a situation where we are unable to function properly, or the committees are unable to function properly, because many of us came to this House on the minimum threshold set by the Constitution, which is in terms of age, of sound mind and others. But you come to Parliament and you are put in a committee, for instance, of Defense and Interior. And there's an unfortunate situation somewhere within the country. And Speaker rightly directs the Committee on Defense and Interior to investigate and report. So our honorable colleague is asking the question, does the committee have the capacity to understand the technical issues, operational issues of the security agencies to the extent that they can investigate and provide any information to the House for us to peruse? And I think this is very important. Mr. Speaker, people turn up in this House and are put in Health Committee. Indeed, you can build the capacity of any member of Parliament to actually perform better in a certain capacity. But I think beyond a certain level, we need expertise from outside Parliament. And that is why I always want to commend the Majority Leader, who believes that Parliament must have that capacity outside of this House that we can follow, that can provide us independent views on certain technical issues. And I agree with my colleague, Honorable Kujeto, who says that hopefully when the new standing order comes into effect, there might be, and then Parliament actually funds it properly, we might have the opportunity where Parliament have a pool of expertise that can advise us on things that ordinary members of the committee may not be able to have an understanding of. That is why I think this statement is very, very important. Mr. Speaker, if you look at some of the things that have been referred to certain committees, maybe the reason the committees never come up with the report is simply because the committee themselves lack the capacity to understand what they have been asked to do. So I think this statement is very important, and maybe the cure to this lies partly in the yet to be outdoored or yet to be approved standing orders, and hopefully, if that is done, that will improve the capacity of all of us in this House who have the opportunity to be in this House, so that the public can get the full benefit of what a member of Parliament is supposed to do, not only in the constituency, but also within the committees which we serve, Mr. Speaker. When that happens, I think the country will be the one that will benefit more, because currently there's a limit to what I can read and understand and operate as an ordinary member of Parliament. I'm an architect, maybe I can understand when things are within my field. But what if the issues are of agriculture, which have very little Mr. Speaker, I don't have expertise in everything. I am not a lawyer. I am not, how do you call it, an educationist. I've only taught for 1 year as a national service person at a school. But as long as I can understand the import of this statement, and as agreed to by the deputy leader, who actually was nodding his head when I was speaking. I believe that this statement is very important and must be taken seriously. And I will recommend, Mr. Speaker, you give some directives for us to maybe have a deeper look vis-a-vis the standing orders that we are yet to adopt. And I would urge colleagues, whenever that standing order appears on the floor, let's all pay attention to it so that within the life of this parliament, we will be able to have an updated standing order that reflects the realities of our country and makes our work much more beneficial as members of parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, majority leadership. Majority leadership.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I commend my respected colleague. Oh, you cannot pronounce, you pronounce markings. Marking without an S, you add S to it, then you're asking who? If you say you have never done it, I've withdrawn. If you think you've never pronounced markings, I've withdrawn. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who made a statement, who goes by the name Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rollins. And so now you say Eza. You yourself who was teaching her, you say Eza. Oh, you can now say Ezenato. She's up. She pronounced it. Pronounce it and let's proceed.
Mr. Speaker, it's not Zaneto, it's Zaneto. So if the honorable member could kindly, the intonation, Zaneto, the darkness must cease. Not Zaneto.
This man says Eza. He says Eza.
But you know our
No,
people,
but he says
you know
Eza.
our people,
He
when
says,
they
Kwame
speak, there's
Abuja
always
says Eza.
something.
So now is it Eza or Za? Or Ze?
Zaneto.
Now you say Eza, you. NDC will always remain NDC. He didn't, yes. You even said that Rollins is the founder of the 92 Constitution. That's what you said. What is the correct pronunciation of the name? What is the correct pronunciation of the name? She has just corrected you. Only me or him too? Mr. Speaker, she's raised a germane issue that has to do with capacity building. And without adding to the earlier position taken by Honorable Kwame, we need to look at the capacity of members, the areas they specialize in, and put them in appropriate committees. So, not only that, we need to also train members to enable them get what it takes to do the oversight mandate required by the Constitution. So this has come at the right time, and I think we are also looking at the standing orders. So even as we go through the standing orders, the committee would have to take this on board, and like the majority leader proposed, if we're dealing with the finance and economy, we look at members with that capacity. And then if we want to add on because of the numbers, then we may as well also provide some training for them to do so. So, Honorable Member, you've raised an issue very important, and I support it. Suffice to say that the comment that came soon thereafter, which suggested that the Constitution of the Republic has a founder, and that founder is Jerry Rollins, is factually inaccurate. The former president is not the founder of the 1992 Constitution. He is neither the founder of the Fourth Republic. He is neither the founder of the Fourth Republic. Okay, so just state that so that students who are listening to you will not make such a mistake. That's all I want to say. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Very well. Yes, leader. What? Leader, hold on then.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I just want to find out from the deputy leader if he's aware that the current president of the Republic, President Akufo-Addo, has described President Rawlings as the founder of the Fourth Republic on numerous occasions. Is he challenging the president, the current president, the leader of his party? Is that what he's doing? Is he saying that he's wrong?
To the extent that you are unable to tell me specifically where and when and in what context that statement was made, I tell you that you are not right. It's inaccurate. I am, however, able to say that within the context of Ms. Agboje's submission, describing Jerry Rawlings as a founder of the Fourth Republican Constitution is inaccurate. Yeah, Fourth Republic, yeah.
Honorable Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for the purposes of education, the 1992 Constitution was the collective decision of the country. You cannot describe somebody who ousted a constitutional regime and who, upon repentance, cooperated for us to found the democracy which we are enjoying today, to be the founder of that democracy. If you want to invite a debate, we can have a full debate on this matter.
Leader, please, Mr. Speaker, I find it inappropriate that the deputy majority leader should speak in terms of the former president repenting and therefore coming to be the founder of the Fourth Republic. Because as of 1992, the National Commission on Democracy was established under Provisional National Defense Council to ensure that we transitioned to constitutional rule. So I do not find it appropriate that he should stand here and say that on repentance is when Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings accepted to transition us into constitutional rule. If he can withdraw that, please.
Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly would agree with her, except to say that I was making a political statement within the context of repentance. However, if it doesn't find favor with you, I'll withdraw, and to state that he did overthrow a constitutional dispensation. And after a period of 11 years, he cooperated for us as a country to transition into a democracy. So if I say he repented, that's a political statement. It's repentance.
Mr. Speaker, is he withdrawing or he's maintaining that? He should withdraw, Mr. Speaker. It's not appropriate.
No, he said he has withdrawn. He said he has.
Mr. Speaker, I take exception to a member of this House referring to my submission as emotional, because I'm not sure I know any other person in this House more emotional than the Deputy Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, two wrongs will not make a right. So what I'm saying is that it's a fact that, Mr. Speaker, it's a fact that we had a democracy which was ousted. And we came into a new dispensation.
Leader, I haven't called you.
Very well.
I haven't called you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Neither have I called you, Honorable Zinato. Neither have also called you. You say that. Leader, let him come to you. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, he has withdrawn. He has withdrawn.
The Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, he called me emotional, and I do not appreciate that. And I would really appreciate it if he withdraws that, because nobody calls other people emotional because they're making a factual point.
Mr. Speaker, I think the point made by our colleague, Honorable Dr. Zanato, should be taken on board. But when the person makes that statement, then you also counter that there's no other person in this House who is much more emotional than you are. We have also stated that he is also emotional. Is that not the case? But let the other one crossed the other one out. Already he has apologized, so let's move on. The Speaker, the oversight of the executive, please, if you can't raise a point of order when somebody has made his comment and sat down, you can't raise a point of order against the
We've gone past that. Nobody has threw a challenge. Honorable member, I am in control.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague will know that he's not speaking to the microphone. He's not speaking to the microphone. Can I have the opportunity to make my own intervention?
I haven't called you, please. Nobody asked you to do that research. He cannot direct you to do the research. I should direct you. I haven't directed you. So please, you just stick your seat. Yes, leader, let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the oversight of the executive is a constitutional mandate for Parliament. And indeed, parliamentarians, not just for Parliament, but for parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, I agree that in this exercise, we should have members with the requisite capacity to serve on the various committees. But let me say that appointing members to committees really does not depend solely on one's professional training. It doesn't depend on that. The Speaker, it depends on the interest of the person, in addition to the professional training, and also the versatility of that individual. The Speaker, the UK, for instance, has had several chancellors of the exchequer, what we call our finance ministers, who have no professional training in accountancy or economics. You stay in committee for some years, you have maybe 2-3 terms, you graduate, you become the shadow minister of
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the majority leader has gone so far to the UK. He himself has been an acting finance minister before. The records of this house reflect that. And he has no background in finance.
Sammy,
and he did a great job. He read the budget so well.
Sammy,
so I'm surprised he's taking us all the way to the UK, to the House of Commons, when he has set such a shining example in Ghana. So I can't understand.
You cannot just get up and start.
Oh, he sat down and allowed me to. he ceded the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Leader, let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about substantive finance ministers and not interim finance ministers, as I acted in those days. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that so much depends on one professional training, one's own personal interest, and also the versatility of the individual. And I was just saying that this one, it happens so like that in the UK because of their long stay on committees. You will get to study everything. A person serves on committee for maybe 2-3 terms. He rises to become maybe shadow minister for that sector for maybe 2 terms. There's nothing that a person wouldn't know. So there is almost that automaticity that when his or her government wins, he then gets elevated to that position seamlessly. Mr. Speaker, that is how we should also construct our committees. Yeah. Unfortunately, they have members, even when they are outside Parliament, even before they come to Parliament, they have eyes on certain committees. And when they first enter Parliament, they go to the majority minority leaders and indicate to them that I want to serve on this committee. When he or she may not have any professional training in that sector. And why are you going there? I've been advised that that committee is very good. How do you determine a good committee? But, Mr. Speaker, I think the issue of capacity building should be taken much more seriously by this House than we have been doing. We should have regular capacity building workshops for us generally, as the new entrants, And then we zero in to the various committees. That's what's done everywhere else. If you serve on a committee on defense and interior, there should be an occasion each year for you to be introduced to the dynamics of the ministry. But we have not been doing that. We do one maybe when Parliament first gets inaugurated. And that's all. And that certainly is not good enough. Mr. Speaker, national security issues compel serious investigations and inquiries. And we must also concede that it is one area where if proper oversight is not conducted, there could be a lot of abuse. And as the Nigerians say, in those sectors, the more you look, the less you see. And certainly not the best. Mr. Speaker, is the reason why in the established democracies, the established parliaments, they have this committee on intelligence. Our own constitution should tell us who should constitute the committee on intelligence. It should replicate national security. Mr. Speaker, when we look at Article 83 of the Constitution, it provides, with respect, if I should take us there, it provides for the composition of the National Security Council, the President, the Vice President, ministers, for the time being holding the portfolios of foreign affairs, defense, interior, finance, and such other ministers as the President may determine. In the construct of the Intelligence and Security Act, we recollect that we then included, apart from these three ministers, we included the Minister for National Security and the Minister for Communications. So we need, in constituting our own intelligence committee, to have these committees or these sectors reflected on the committee. Oftentimes, in some establishments, you have the speaker himself. Of course, those speakers are members of parliament. Our speaker is not. So we'll see how to construct it. So in those establishments where the speakers are members of parliament, such a sensitive committee will be under the leadership of the speaker. Or sometimes it's the most senior member of the House who will be chairing such a committee, and it will necessarily include both the majority and minority leaders. So, Mr. Speaker, we should look at this. How best do we compose this? And again, that committee, when they set, especially to inquire into procurement issues for the security agencies, would oftentimes meet in camera, unless there is a scandal. Otherwise, ordinarily, they will meet behind the curtains to probe into procurement. The Speaker, for us it is easy these days, because of technology, to be able to foray into the procurements of, or the stock of arsenal of certain countries. One still must struggle and have that opaqueness relating to your own defense architecture. However, procurement issues must be known or must be availed to Parliament. I agree with my colleague, the chief whip for the minority, when he raised issues about engagement of consultants. There's no committee in Parliament that is a know-it-all committee. Referrals will be made, and on occasions we have to engage consultants outside Parliament. It is a tragedy, I keep saying, that allocations are made every year, and they are never utilized by the committees. The Speaker, for this year, I think we have an allocation close to 2.5 million or so. It will sit there, it will remain unutilized till thy kingdom come. So what are we doing to ourselves? So I think it's important for us to come to terms with this, and we will do what's appropriate. But having said so, Mr. Speaker, let me commend the maker of the statement, and we should reflect this discussion on the composition of the Intelligence Committee when we come to 4 minutes. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, I can say that the owners of the other two statements. Dr. Festus, are you here? Okay. Your statement is short, so I will allow you to read. So let's hear you. Honorable Gansa, yours has been scheduled for Friday. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make a statement on the urgent needs for public-private partnership in bridging the road infrastructure deficit in the country, thereby reducing the burden on our national budget and consequentially, and more importantly, on the national budget. PPP is a globally accepted public sector procurement mechanism whereby the government secures commitment from the private sector and transfers certain level of responsibility to the private sector in providing public infrastructure services. Typically, it involves private capital financing government projects and services upfront and then drawing revenues over the PPP period. Mr. Speaker, in spite of the efforts made by the successive governments in the road sector over the years, the road infrastructure gap in Ghana still remains high. Ghana in 2019 was estimated to have a road condition mix of good, fair, and poor in the ratio of 41%, 33%, and 26% respectively. And this ratio was projected to 60, 20, and 20% respectively by 2024. Trunk, urban, and feeder roads have also been projected to hit 14,873 kilometers, 15,463 kilometers, and 42,042 kilometers respectively, nationwide by 2025. The projected figures were partly achieved as a proportion of road maintenance and rehabilitated improved from 52% in 2015 to 70% in 2020, yet no section of this country is without poor road infrastructure. It is also evident that the financial burden on government to fund these roads, the road infrastructure gap from the annual budget allocation has been inadequate and unreliable. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, if we so desire to improve the road network at an accelerated rate, then PPP is the surest way to go, as the tax revenue has been woefully inadequate to cover this colossal sum outlay. Historically, 3 items in the budget expenditure lines, being salary and emolument, interest on loans, and statutory payments, have absorbed over 100% of our tax revenue. They constituted 99% in 2012, 120% in 2013, 103% in 2015, and in 2016 it was 120%. In 2021 and 2022, these ratios increased to 147 and 125 respectively, and has been projected to decrease to 86% by 2025. This echoes to confirm that road infrastructure has in the past been purely financed by borrowings and grants. PPP programs is undoubtedly, Mr. Speaker, the cleanest direction without urging government to sign on to expensive loans with unfavorable terms and conditions. It is imperative to this to ensure sustainable and adequate funding to reduce the road infrastructure deficit that led to the establishment of the Road Fund in 1985, followed by the Road Fund Act 1997 at 536, with the objective of establishing secured and stable source of funding to finance the routine, periodic maintenance and rehabilitation of the public roads in the country. Mr. Speaker, the inadequate source of funding, the socio-economic effects of bad roads, and how the private investor will be attracted to this sector to bridge the infrastructure gap is what this statement seeks to emphasize. Mr. Speaker, research by the National Road Safety Commission in 2015 shows that there were 6,104 accidents and 7,465 casualties between 2004 and 2011. Mr. Speaker, other effects of relying on poor road infrastructure have been increase in traffic congestion, weak road safety guidelines, and overall discourage the use of public transport. Stress level is eventually high, and the productive workforce demotivated. A case in question is in Accra-Kasua stretch, even after the free toll policy. This has become one of the difficult roads to ply on. Traffic congestion, high cost of driving, high fuel consumption, faulty tracks, parked carelessly without triangles, as if it is a terrain without any supervision. Dangerous overtaking, particularly by the special tricycle, popularly referred to as Abubuya and the Prajas, fiercely competing with the insurable vehicles for space. Mr. Speaker, the high cost of road construction in Ghana compared with other developing and developing countries is also a major concern. Whereas the World Bank median estimate rehabilitation of $183,000, that of Ghana was between $45,000 to $700,000. Construction, which involves widening a new construction estimate, was $959,000. That of Ghana is also as high as $1.8 million. Right, Honorable Speaker, the biggest interesting question is, have all these capital projects been financed by our tax revenue? It's a big no. As alluded earlier on, our tax revenue could only cover for only 3 items in the expenditure line. By implication, and invariably, almost all the road infrastructure in this country, both current and in the past, have been financed either by external support, a sequence and a progression that could lead to sustainable fiscal discipline in the country. Not only that, it has the potential of inevitably plugging the country into both physical and monetary instability. Mr. Speaker, to avoid the political pressure on successive governments in fixing our road at the expense of other equally essential socio-economic infrastructure, coupled with low tax revenue and high cost of construction, while compromising on quality of delivery, amidst high debt to GDP ratio, inability of government to commit fiscal spending on roads, PPP is undoubtedly, Mr. Speaker, becoming a sustainable global concept that Ghana must embrace to address the road infrastructure deficit in the country. There may be several reasons why government may consider PPP, among which may include to support the country's development and to benefit the citizens to improve services. It is also the mechanism to share expertise and technical skills, improve transparency in public procurement, attain a better value for money, address the issue of shortages of government funds, improve the inherent inefficiencies and innovations in the private sector. Again, it will enable the private sector to manage some types of risk, ensure better quality of service delivery, save costs, share associated costs with government or risk transfer needs. Construction timelines ensure clear definition and specification of user needs, reduce political pressure and public monopoly while promoting competition, and an incentive that better aligns efforts with risk and reward. To serve as an incentive policy tool to lessen the lack of dynamism in the traditional public services, and above all, to minimize government budgets on expenditure. It is heartwarming to note that Accra Cape Coast Road, Accra Takoradi, and Accra Tema Road are all on PPP programs at different stages of contract execution and are expected upon completion to reduce the traveling time whilst improving the road safety and security, lower vehicle operating costs for road users, and to create jobs. In Senegal, Mr. Speaker, Dakar to the Miado Highway, completed in October 2015, was as a result of PPP between the Senegal government and the World Bank. Similar projects was undertaken in South Africa, and Lagos Lekki Port projects in Nigeria were all under AFD funded projects with the various governments. Mr. Speaker, PPP must be encouraged to ease the pressure on government from borrowing to fund the road infrastructure gap at the expense of other key developmental pillars of the country. Right, Honorable Speaker, it is my recommendation that the mandate and the purpose of the Road Fund Act enactment is appraised to change Ghana's scopes and framework in funding the road sector. And I'm very confident that this Honorable House will support any move by the Secretariat towards this recommended direction. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable member, did you distribute your statement to members?
I didn't know.
Honorable member, it's imperative that if you want to read the statement, you share with our colleagues so that people will get to know the statement. Or if you just present the statement to the whips to be read without the knowledge of other colleagues, it becomes a bit. So, Honorable Member from Shieso, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I would like to commend my honorable colleague, MP, for the statement that he just made and associate myself with. Mr. Speaker, I think it is extremely important that such important statements giving the needed support and attention as a state, not only as a house. I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, because especially in the developing economies such as Ghana, that we have issues with our fiscal space and the government expenditures, especially within the space of the discretionary arm of our budget, has been a challenge to us as a country. Other alternative policies or funding policies such as PPP is extremely functional in terms of meeting our needs when it comes to infrastructure and other projects. Mr. Speaker, PPP has really helped most of the even developed economies in terms of bridging the gap or managing the infrastructural deficit that years back confronted them. Some of the advantages of PPP in this sense must be actually revisited. In the first place, it helps governments such as we are having today fund projects that are so important to us without even touching our public purse already, which is limited. We all know that we run ration budget as a country. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, these private sector partners, if I should emphasize and be precise, bring on board a lot of innovations when it comes to defining and designing projects in our country. Some of them mostly are from different jurisdictions who bring on board their cultural and country-specific experiences on board simply because, Mr. Speaker, some of them are leading us in terms of development. Mr. Speaker, the next thing I would like to talk about in terms of its advantages is also the fact that they also add value to the local content and also give employment opportunities to our young people, because there are segments of value chains when it comes to most of the projects that we actually get this advantage of entering into the PPP agreement. Mr. Speaker, I will however say that as much as we welcome it and we think it's a good idea or alternative, we should also look at some of the challenges or disadvantages. Mr. Speaker, most of the time, some of these PPP actors at the embryonic stage present nice documents. They present documents to the extent that they even have the financial muscle and the capacity. And when they are given the advantage, projects are delayed. Because sometimes they even take the contract signed and be given that opportunity before they look for funds. I am accordingly advising and asking the bodies and the authorities that have the opportunity to enter these agreements with them to extend their due diligence to the side that I describe it as backward integration, making sure that those companies that are giving these opportunities actually have what it takes in terms of their financial performances, at least for the past 3 years, and the needed financial ratios be appraised for us to be sure that indeed they have what it takes to enter into that partnership and also give Ghanaians what we actually expect. In which case, we can always equate expectation and perception, which defines quality service and delivery. Mr. Speaker, it's not only that. We should also look at these areas to empower the domestic entrepreneurs and investors and financiers. Because sometimes the same job that can be executed if we enter such partnership with a local financier, we tend to give it to the foreigners. I'm not saying they don't do well, they do well. But then, Mr. Speaker, sometimes we need to empower our own. Because when they get their money or monies, then they try to take all the monies outside. And before they take the money outside, they have to change into foreign currency. By doing that, we increase demand for foreign currencies. And definitely what happens is that the resultant effect is that our local currency becomes very weak. So we need to look at all these parameters and ensure that as much as I support this good call and statement, as a country, we need to redefine our corporate focus as a country and integrate and situate some of these good alternatives and options and policies in a way that we can derive the needed synergies and the overall benefit that will make sure that our money stay here to strengthen our city. We can also create jobs for our young people and also get quality service. And at the same time, help us to lessen the burden on our fiscal space, whereby we will always have to go and borrow as a country. Mr. Speaker, I would like to end here by saying that PPP, of course, looking at the good side and the bad side, is an alternative that we as a country must give the needed consideration and attention and make sure that most of the problems we are having in the area of infrastructure, the huge infrastructural gap that we have or deficit, as a country, we can move in the direction that within 10 years, most of these problems can be resolved. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Can I come to leadership? Yes. Honorable, hold on. Let him call member for Fulcrum first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me also commend the maker of the statement in bringing to our attention the importance of public-private partnership in the development of our infrastructure. I just want to reflect on how we are able to use PPP, for example, to help develop road infrastructure within our communities. Sometimes when you go to some parts of Accra or Kumasi, or I'm sure in any other city in Ghana, you see how very good, nice private buildings are being erected. And you look at the kind of roads that are there, you wonder at what point government will be able to secure money to go and do that, the roads in those communities. And so perhaps we need to think about a model where the private investors or people who are building in these areas could be allowed to pull some private capital to develop the local roads and find a way to get them get their investments paid back, either through using their investment to offset their payment for property rates, or allowing them to tow the roads in those communities for a certain prescribed fee, so that in the long term, maybe they'll be able to recoup that investment. By so doing, you will get private people helping government to develop road infrastructure within the emerging communities in our cities. So perhaps we need to think about that model. Mr. Speaker, the second point I want to make is about thinking through how government can also take steps to assist us develop our communities. And I'm just going to use the Bree Hills as an example. Some years back, few years back, when you drive from Accra, Ayi Mensa, going to Abri, you would see that the landscape was beautiful. Today, when you are going to Abri, you see how the vegetation on the hill is being cleared, and private, buildings just sprouted, coming up. And I wonder how we are going to manage the situation in few years to come. Mr. Speaker, we need to note that the flood in Accra is already a problem. And when we allow the entire landscape of the Abri Hills to the vegetation to be cleared, the volume of water that will be coming to Accra in the next few years, we will not be able to manage it. And that is why in such landscapes, you need to have a land use management plan where government goes in to acquire the land and maybe allow people to purchase the land, not just the small 100 by 100 size, but in maybe 1 acre portions. And then when people develop private homes in such big portions, they will leave about 75% of the land as a vegetation. And so even though private houses will be developing, you will still have a sizable number of the vegetation and the original landscape intact. And I think that is the way we should develop areas like the Bree Hills. We can't allow people to just be buying normal 50 by 100 or 70 by 80 plots, clear the vegetation, build houses, and then tomorrow the entire Bree landscape will become like any other community. And so we need to think through these issues well and make sure that as a government we intervene to acquire such critical landscapes and then make sure that they are well managed before private people come in to as it were, clear the entire vegetation and destroy the landscape. And then later on, the consequent effects of flooding will hit us, and then we have to now go and look for funds to go back and cure the devastation that we have caused. So these will be my comments on the statement. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Honorable, let me welcome you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this statement, ably made by Honorable Festus Ewakofi, MP for Denchira East, is apt and appropriate and proper. We are doing it this time. Mr. Speaker, I have served on the Roads Committee as the deputy ranking member and then also the vice chair. Very obvious. Just that over the period of time, we don't seem to actually kick in the energy to make sure that we can have more roads in the country. If we take the Speaker's statement, paragraph 2, it talks about the road conditions that government comes to meet and our inability to add more roads to it. But Mr. Speaker, one of our biggest challenge, I believe, that it has to come with the engineering. Mr. Speaker, most of the time, we design roads for 7 years. Just after building it in 1 year, the second year, we have to go and rehabilitate. So you ask yourself, what is the point? I mean, we do asphalt road and it's supposed to take us 15 years. By the 10th year, there are difficulties with the roads and we need to work on it. So instead of doing more roads, we are always virtually standing in the same place repairing what we have already built. And clearly, it makes it very, very, very difficult for government to expand the road infrastructure, and therefore the condition mix becomes a problem. Secondly, we've also talked about the cost of road construction. I do believe that during the time that we were building the Kaswa Road, there was a huge debate in the whole of this country about the cost of building that road. To the extent that when Obechebi Lamte came up, we were able to look at the cost from Kaswa, and by the time we realized the Obechebi one, the prices have come down. So the question you ask yourself is, how come that in one regime the prices are like this, in another regime they have reduced? I believe that consistently we are not doing something right, which is creating a fund that is cash that can be used in paying contractors. So what is literally happening is that because contractors know that they are never going to be paid early, that delay and the cost of that credit that they themselves use on the road is always pricing in the cost of the road. So naturally, the roads in Ghana, the prices are definitely going to go up. And I believe that that is one way, one area we need to look at as a country, so that we can expand more road infrastructure, and the one that we also have can always be in good condition. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, what you also come to realize is that apart from the cost, which consistently continue to be a major bottleneck, we have to also look at new technologies. It seems that this business of bitumen and asphalt, we have to relook at it. Recently, the Minister for Roads told us that if we wanted to change the wearing costs from bitumen or asphaltic to concrete surface, it might cost us just about 10 to 15% more, because the base and the sub-base is virtually the same material. Why is it that with all the clinker we have in this country, we cannot immediately take a decision that we want to build more highways into concrete roads or paved roads? Because those ones can last for 50 years instead of 15 years, which is 1.5. I mean, 3 times the lifespan, and the cost will not be more than even up to say 30% more. Why are we still not taking that decision? Why are engineers not designing new roads with that type of wearing costs? And we continue to use this same bitumen and the shapete and then the asphalt overlays that within 15 years they deteriorate. And Mr. Speaker, every time they deteriorate, it costs us more. It continues to cost us more. And I believe that we need to critically have a look at this and make sure that we can do more for our own people and for ourselves. Last but not least, the Speaker made mention of the issue of public-private partnerships. I think that is very good. But, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the over-centralization of some of these decisions is also becoming a problem. I believe that it is time that some of these rules should be left to the regional administrations to deal with it. In fact, technically, it should even be left with the assemblies to take those decisions and deal with it. We should take a decision as a country. For the year, maybe the cap is 2 billion, and we are sharing it baseline to say 100 million into every region. And then you manage those stuff at that level. The Speaker, what is even sometimes so worrying is that when there's a major bad road in a region, nobody knows the Minister for Roads and Transport. They'll keep calling on the regional minister, the DC. No, they don't have any budget to solve the problem. So we will just be making announcements, and then we are not having the resources to do it. I believe that, like a leader said some time ago, that we need to have a new bill or a new act of parliament which will enable assemblies to construct roads with a certain level of funding. I believe that that should be the direction. Because if we are able to maintain what we have done, I mean, one pothole you can fix, another pothole you can fix. We don't wait for it to generate to become 20 potholes that we cannot generate the money to fix. I believe that is the way we should go. And then there are a lot of private companies who also want to develop roads. Unfortunately, anytime they want to develop it, the highway or the urban roads will tell them, bring us the money for us to do the road. Meanwhile, they can do it at less cost. And I'll give you a typical example. Takwa to Abos Road. Mr. Speaker, under normal circumstance, if it was being done by highway or urban roads, it will cost you not less than 1 million per kilometer. You were able to do their own for $27 million for the 33 kilometers of road. So basically, it shows that we can do it at a cost effective than all these bureaucratic, what we call pricing that gets into it because of the fact that it might be paid late. So I strongly believe that if we are able to take this roads project as a parliamentary issue, I believe that we should be able to sit down as Parliament, listen to people, and come out with a certain direction in making sure that we can get more roads. Because as MPs, one of our biggest challenge we have in our constituency is roads. Mr. Speaker, it's just roads everywhere, even in the cities. It's a headache. What about those in the small towns and then big villages? I believe that this business of roads, we need to look at it holistically, look at the suggestion that has come up, and have a path that will make sure that the cost of constructing the roads becomes cheaper, it can last longer, and we have new technologies that can make sure that our people are happy and we can get more roads throughout the length and breadth of this country to make Ghana a modern state. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Let's hear you, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry I just rushed in. I heard the Honorable Member just talk about roads. I picked a few things and I want to make a few comments.
I used to work at the Ghana Highways, eh?
Yes.
Very well. So let's get your contribution.
Normally, when you construct roads, you should make provision for maintenance. If you don't spend money on maintenance, the roads will break up. On the average, you need to spend 2% of the cost of construction every year on maintenance, because maintenance delayed is bad. What happens is that if you don't spend the 2% a year, in 5 years, the damage you get is not 10% of the damage. By the equation, it goes to 4 times the damage every year. So in just 5 years, your road would have broken down by at least 40%. And therefore, it is not the construction of new roads which is ideal. Is the routine maintenance of roads which gives it a long span. Routine maintenance is just clearing the weed on the sides of the road. A pothole patched today saves a lot, like the British say, a stitch in time saves 9. And therefore, we should look at our maintenance. I heard the previous speaker talk about the road you designed for 15 years, in 10 years is broken down. That is the reason. If you don't spend that amount of time, of money, in 2 years, that's 2% of the cost. In the 10 years, the damage which would have been done will be more than 90%. There are new technologies and so on, but we should look at our maintenance regime and plan things such that we do not go lean on maintenance. I want to, because I jumped in fact, I was in the office when I heard him talking, that's why I came. So maybe another time, if you happen to be here, I can give more information on such another statement on this one. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, first I commend the Honourable Member for the statement. In fact, his main contention is to the effect that we need to partner the private sector to support the road infrastructure so as to lessen the direct cost on government. Mr. Speaker, his contention in his two-page statement is well-founded. And I say so because if you have a careful look at the preamble of the Constitution, and with your leave, I shall proceed to quote that the principle that all powers of government spring from the sovereign will of the people, the protection and preservation of fundamental human rights and freedoms, unity and stability for our nation. The protection and preservation of fundamental human rights and freedoms, unity and stability of our nations. And Mr. Speaker, if you come to the directive principles of state policy, especially Article 36, 2D, the state shall in particular take all necessary steps to establish a sound, healthy economy whose underlying principles shall include D, undertaking even and balanced development of all regions and every part of each region of Ghana, and in particular, improving the conditions of life in the rural areas and generally redressing any imbalance, emphasis mine, imbalance in development between the rural and the urban areas. So, Mr. Speaker, what our colleague is simply telling us is that we need to progress a little more faster in getting the private sector involved. Members filed more questions on roads than any other sector. And our constituents complain on roads than any other thing. Mr. Speaker, the question for consideration is whether or not the public is ready to share the cost. Because if the private sector comes in and it's not a burden on the state to pay, they will charge some road tolls, some levies, some fees. So whilst we call on the government to move in this direction of policy, we may also have to educate our people as parliamentarians for them to appreciate. Mr. Speaker, oftentimes our people need development. They tell us that this is what we want. And then when tax is imposed, our people will complain that no, it's too much. So as a political class, it appears that we lose sight of the construct. We are unable to properly explain issues and explain how we are going to get it done. An example is the e-levy, which recently became a heated debate. But then again, the public is also concerned about the wastage, the waste in the system, corruption, and how we deal with public funds. So I believe that all these imbalances, if we properly look at them as a country, we will be able to meet the imperative of Article 36 2D. What our colleague Dr. Festus Ewakofi is saying should not just be a talk. We should get it to the Minister of Roads and Minister of Roads and Highways for him to escalate it to Cabinet so that a proper look will be taken on this PPP policy. Mr. Speaker, I chair the road fund, and I know that what he's saying is really, really right. It's not about the enactment of the road fund, but the funds there. Mr. Speaker, as we say it's in P, and so and do bibia, sikaneswa. In other words, Mr. Speaker, the funds are just insufficient. We can't do much with it. We've awarded so much contract because of the demands from our people, yet we don't have the means to pay. And Mr. Speaker, when we do that, we destroy businesses. If a businessman procures a loan and uses his assets as guarantee, and the state is unable to pay, obviously the bank would foreclose it. And when that foreclosure is executed, there's a cash flow problem. The bank cannot really get liquidity and it affects the economy. So, Mr. Speaker, this PPP initiative must be looked at, but our people must be ready to, accept the cost that would go directly for the usage of the roads or the benefit thereto. And indeed, of course, those who are going to be in this partnership will not be Father Christmas. They will be doing so for profit. So, Mr. Speaker, without more, let me conclude by saying that this is an important call on we, the political class. We've been given a responsibility. The time has come for us to talk straight to the people. The time has come for us to engage and let the people know that you cannot eat your cake and have it. It's a collective, and we need to work together to achieve that so that we won't get many people complaining that they don't have roads and they are discriminated against and all that. Mr. Speaker, without more, I will thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we thank you too. We have brought statement time to a close, and we would like to thank the owners of the statements, Honorable Festus Ewia Kofi and Honorable Senator Ajima Lawrence, for I mentioned it rightly. I also thank the contributors.
Speaker, she says that the two of us, you and I, pronounce her name wrongly. She decided not to say it into the mic. The honorable member, the late John Rollins' daughter.
So, honorable members, thank you very much for your contribution. So, leadership, I believe we have some bills.
Mr. Speaker, if you'll be pleased, if it pleases you, we may proceed to item 30. Motion.
Which?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the title of the motion is the Contract Amendment Bill 2022.
So, what
item
motion?
13 of page 5.
What motion?
Mr. Speaker, item 13 on page 5 of today's order paper.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this morning at the pre-sitting meeting, we had no idea that we were going to consider some of these bills. Mr. Speaker, this is particularly important because the bills in question, interstate succession bill, is a very big one. Second, the contract amendment bill, and then the whistleblower bill. So we are talking of 3 different bills. I plead that the interstate succession bill is stepped down. Speaker, it's a major bill so that we can debate it properly and discuss it appropriately. Probably we can do the second reading for the contracts and then the whistleblowers bill. And in these 2, we can probably discuss the second reading, then we can come back to the consideration at appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I have not made an application on interstate succession bill. I have not made an application. The application before you, which you agrees, is the contract amendment bill. Yes, I have not made an application on the interstate succession bill. I have not. What is before us, which you agree, is a contract amendment bill. So your application is yours.
Very well. So, honorable members, let me then invite you to page 5. Item listed 13. Motion by the Attorney General.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I move that the Contract Amendment Bill 2022 be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker and honorable members of Parliament, the object of the bill is to amend the Contract Act of 1960 Act 25 to provide for mainly 2 things. First, the type of interest to be paid on a sum of money which is due to a party arising out of a contract or transaction entered into on behalf of the government. Mr. Speaker, to this end, the bill provides that the payment of interest on any such sum shall be at simple interest and not compound interest. Also, the bill prohibits a person from entering into any such contract or transaction in which the payment of interest on a sum due to that party is calculated at compound interest. A contract entered into in contradiction of this provision is made null and void. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker and honorable members of Parliament, the bill also secondly authorizes a minister responsible for a subject or department on a matter falling within the portfolio of that minister or a person duly authorized by that minister to be the only persons that are able to enter into a contract on behalf of the Republic. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, the passage of this bill will proscribe a person from entering into a contract or transaction on behalf of a government in which the payment is calculated at compound interest. This will effectively reduce the cost of entering into transactions or contracts on behalf of the Republic. It is therefore respectfully our expectation that this Honourable House will assist in attaining the intended objective of the bill by passing the bill. I thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable Chairman, you may second the motion and read
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to second the motion, and in so doing, Mr. Speaker, I present your report. Mr. Speaker, the report has been circulated, and I pray that the Hazard Department captures the entirety of the report. Mr. Speaker, I so second. Thank you.
Very well. Yes. Honourable Hiafo.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to the second reading of the Contract Amendment Bill 2022. Mr. Speaker, the Contract Act 1960 Act 25 came into force on 22nd day of December 1960, and it has been with us for all these years. 1960. It has been with us all these years and has served us very, 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 very well. Mr. Speaker, if I listen to the Deputy Attorney General, the essence of this particular amendment is to legislate on the type of interest that a state will enter into a contract with. Mr. Speaker, I believe strongly that this particular amendment bill is frivolous. Mr. Speaker, it is vexatious, and it will be baseless in law if this House passed this amendment bill into an act. Why am I saying this? There is a traditional contract doctrine of freedom of contract. So the parties to a contract, or the contracting parties, has the freedom to enter into a contract, whether it should be a simple interest or it should be a compound interest. So for this particular House to pass a law to prohibit entering into a contract based on a compound interest, Mr. Speaker, it will be violating the traditional contract doctrine of freedom of contract. The state will always enter into a contract with the mind and the eyes widely open. Therefore, parties are supposed to agree on terms and conditions of the contract. So if the state chooses to agree on a contract based on compound interest, there is nothing basically wrong about it. If the state decides that by way of policy, they are not going to enter into a contract which is based on a compound interest, nobody will put a loaded gun on the state. Making a law to prohibit a state entering into a contract based on a compound interest would mean that no matter the circumstances, no matter how juicy the contract is, if it is based on compound interest, it is prohibited. Mr. Speaker, there are instances where you can enter into a contract based on simple interest, but the terms and conditions will be worse than entering into a contract based on compound interest. So I do not therefore understand the legal basis of prohibiting a state from entering into a contract based on a compound interest. Mr. Speaker, the irresponsibility on part of the state cannot compel Parliament to make this law. For instance, if a supplier supply goods to the government of the Republic of Ghana, after the supplier has gone to enter into a contract with a bank based on compound interest, they are saying that by this law, if the state delays in giving payment of the money, interest that will be paid on the money due the contractor that has been delayed cannot be based on a compound interest. Mr. Speaker, the Contract Act governs everybody. In a situation where you are introducing an amendment to the Contract Act which seems discriminatory, this House must not pass that particular act into law. Mr. Speaker, for these reasons, I am vehemently opposed to the passage of the contract amendment bill into law. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the bill must not even pass the second reading. I so submit.
But let me find out, committee chair. Did the committee sit on this?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, yes, the committee had discussed this extensively. My colleague, who is the ranking member and who was at the chair with me, raised these issues, and the learned Deputy Attorney General took us through. Because every bill, there is a mischief that the bill seeks to cure. They had proposed that some ministers are not careful. They enter into a contract. Mr. Speaker, this bill is not taking away interest by government. What the bill seeks to do by the amendment, few of them, is to say that if government is entering into a contract, it would and it must always be simple interest. So if you come to contract with government...
So it is only in respect of government contract? It's not affecting individual contracts?
Yes. So these points were raised and ranking, and we have noted it, that yes, the concerns were raised that because of privity of contract, that any person is free to contract. We unanimously came up with this report, and that's why we have agreed that the motion be seconded. So we agreed as a committee, but he raised the point, nevertheless, that he was opposed to that. So I thought that when it comes to consideration stage, then he could raise his opposition, because there had been an earlier precedent that if you are a member of a committee, you could disagree on what the committee had proposed to the House. But now we are doing second reading, and I propose that we should...
My fear is that pursuant to our Standing Order 127, we are supposed to do a proper debate. And afterwards, I'll have to put the question. So if per the understanding I'm getting from you, if you don't cross this hurdle, you will not get to the consideration stage. Chairman, am I clear? I don't know whether I'm making myself clear.
Mr. Speaker, I thought the proposal was that we wanted to defer the question.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, let me disagree with the ranking member on one leg of his argument. Mr. Speaker, as a country and as a government, you can regulate interest that you pay on delayed payment. Mr. Speaker, it is important to regulate it because the cost to the nation is becoming too large. Mr. Speaker, the reason why today the cost of our contracts are far higher if you are to benchmark it to our other countries in the sub-region is as a result of interest on delayed payment. And so if government intends to regulate it through a law, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we should discourage it. I think we should rather commend them. My view is how you do it in such a way that it will reflect only government sector. Mr. Speaker, you cannot impose it on the private sector. But for government, I think it is only right that we regulate the interest that you pay. Because, for example, if you take a particular road, and if government, for some reason, delays in the payment of the cost, and if you are not careful and you have to pay it not on simple interest but on other interest, then probably the cost will be 10 times. And that is what we are seeing of late. So it is only right for us to regulate the government sector, contracts for the government sector. I will support it any day. But Speaker, the other one that I think we need to probably rethink is the fact that we are saying it's only the Minister of State that can enter into a contract. What happens to the government policy of fiscal decentralization? What happens to... Okay, so what happens, my argument is, okay, if you take a Futu District Assembly, or a Dumako in the same District Assembly, Futu is a municipality. So, Speaker, let me use my constituency, my district. Edumako Enyan Esiam District Assembly. And if they are to enter into a contract with a supplier or a contractor, are you saying that the minister responsible for local government would delegate them as a team that can really sign or enter into a contract? Speaker, I think it's a bit too broad. Probably we may have to introduce some exemptions when we get to the consideration. We don't discourage fiscal decentralization. Fiscal decentralization is something that we should all encourage because, Speaker, you cannot centralize the award of contracts only at the district, at the ministerial level. If you are to do that, you will defeat the intentions of fiscal decentralization that we are all investing in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Honorable Chairman, and can we have a law that regulates only the public sector or the government contract, with the private sector also having different law regarding to it?
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Is that possible?
So, yes, this is about government contracts. Government says that you are entering a contract with me. This is my position. I cannot go with compounded interest. I'll go with simple interest. That is allowed. And I think the minority leader has said it all.
Yes, let me go to Ho Central.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. This issue of interest on contract payment arises from the fact that payments are not made to the contractors on time. Indeed, there was a time when the World Bank gave us guidelines that if you are entering into a contract with the Ministry of Finance, there should be a provision that there will be no interest calculated on delayed payments. That is government. But if we are making law for the whole country, we should not be discriminatory. We should make sure that the law can be applied in our homes, in our private businesses, and in government businesses. Now, if we make this a general law, it will affect contractors. The point is that the contractor goes to the bank to borrow money. He borrows money, and the bank is calculating the interest on the outstanding loan and interest which is due at any point in time.
Now you are telling that contractor that if he is going to pay back his loan, he will pay interest based on a compounded method of computation. But the government, who is the owner of the particular contract, will not do same. I think it's discriminatory. If the government wants to award contract to people and it is hell-bent on not paying interest on a cumulative basis, then it should insert it in that particular contract, not in a general law. If the government is signing a contract with me and it inserts that clause and I find it acceptable to me, I will enter into the contract. If I don't like it, I leave it. But it should not be general that even if it is financially reasonable to do so, we should not, we should take it out of the contract terms. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that this provision should not be allowed to stay. If the government awards a contract and it wants to implement it, it should do so with the particular contractor that is engaging. I thank you.
Chairman, I hope you got him. That we should insert it in the specific contract. Okay, let me.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, members must appreciate the fact that at consideration stage, they would have the liberty to deal with specific issues and to come up with amendment. We are dealing with the policy issue here where we are allowed to make our contribution. But Mr. Speaker, let me first address the issue of the compound interest. And I must say that I agree on all fours with the respected Deputy Attorney General who moved the motion. Mr. Speaker, the old law, or the law we seek to amend, reads, per Section 17, this Act applies to contract and transactions entered into on behalf of the Republic, as it applies to other contracts and transactions. I'm coming there. You know I'm capable of making my submission, so take it easy. So, Mr. Speaker, the amendment is seeking to create a distinction. Government wants to enforce a contract in a particular direction. A party to a contract is not forced to enter into a contract. The rule of freedom to a contract applies. So it is important to write the law in express terms to avoid ambiguity, to reduce or perhaps eradicate discretion. If you want to ensure certainty, one cardinal principle of rule of law is certainty. Ab initio, there must be certainty in the law governing the relationship. So government wants to ensure certainty, consistency, so that ab initio you know that when you are dealing with government contracts, in the event of late payments, you are entitled to a simple interest. And the judge who may be in charge of that case will be guided by these express provisions. Mr. Speaker, perhaps it's important that I come with a recent matter I dealt with in court, where a client was claiming making a dollar claim. And the judge calculated the interest using CD rate. And Mr. Speaker, when it got to the enforcement execution stage, the issue was raised that once it's a dollar claim, it can only be LIBOR calculation and not the CD interest rate. By using the CD, it was higher. Mr. Speaker, again, there was a lacuna. And the judge was exercising a discretion So, Mr. Speaker, this is a situation. Well, it can be 3-month LIBOR or 6-month LIBOR plus whatever margin. You know, when it comes to financial crime law and financial laws, I am good as you are. So I know what I'm saying. I beg you. But the point here is that the judge found himself in a state where he had to exercise a discretion, looking at how long the claim has taken. In an attempt to ensure justice and fairness, he said, okay, I'm applying 23% or 26%. And the adversary or the opposing party or the state said, no, this is a dollar transaction. So please don't use the CD rate, use the dollar rate. My point is that if we had a fundamental law guiding how such a transaction is to be carried, the judge will have no difficulty. Like the Chief Justice said, she is a textualist. The text will guide and lead the way. So, Mr. Speaker, as a house, if we are guided by this policy, I think we better embrace it to avoid unnecessary ambiguity. But I respect the views expressed by my colleague Bernard Ahiafo. I respect his views. Suffice to say that this is policy, and we cannot stand down because you disagree with the policy. Government says that the burden on it when it comes to this judgment debt, and if you go to the road fund, interest claims alone, indeed, that's the question. The interest claims alone are more than the principal claims. And when we're talking about expecting our judges to do the right thing, we should also guide them with express laws. And if we leave them with discretion, they may end up doing things over the roof. So, Mr. Speaker, government seeks to cure this problem. And that is why it is coming in express terms by saying that, you see, let's have a simple interest calculation. Now, Honorable Kodo argues that why don't we leave it to the individual contract? That when government is signing a contract, state so that you are going to enter into this contract, but when there's a claim, it's simple interest. That's your contention. But Mr. Speaker, that cannot work because there is a subsisting law that has certain provisions. And if we want to do a proper fundamental guide, then let us legislate on it. Let's legislate on it. What if a certain minister or a certain authorized person fails to state the policy of government? What if a government comes and doesn't really pay attention to such claims and we create such lacuna again? So, Mr. Speaker, let's get to the consideration stage where members would want to come up with certain amendment, but fundamentally, the memorandum is well founded, and I see nothing wrong with it. I so submit, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to contribute to this motion and the report. Mr. Speaker,
Leader, as I said, pursuant to your own standing orders 127, when we get to the second reading, this is the time we are looking into the policy. So we have to allow members to contribute. Very well.
The practice has been that normally when we foreclose on leadership, it ends the matter. That was only problem. But you are not being limited. Because we thought you had listened to the minority leader and you had come to it. Yeah. So, Mr.
Anyway,
Speaker,
you are right.
You enjoy the liberty to call anybody.
So, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, having gone through the report, I have my reservation as a contract manager or management expert as well as a quantity surveyor. Mr. Speaker, the bill or the proposal, the policy seeks to amend contract law in the country. And Mr. Speaker, one of the cardinal principles that the bill seeks to amend has to do with calculation of interest. Mr. Speaker, if you are a county surveyor on any project, there are two issues that you have to consider. Fluctuation. Fluctuation calculates more or less increases in price or decreases in price. Then also interest on delayed payment, which is another factor. Now, Mr. Speaker, in our calculation on fluctuations, we use formula. It's a cumulative formula that we use. Now, interest on delayed payment also uses a formula. Now, if you are limiting our interest on only simple interest, then it means that you are disadvantaging the contractor who has gone to the bank or to any financial institution to borrow money. Now, if you disadvantage a business person who has gone to borrow money to perform his duty, and government says because you want to regulate or control, as the bill seeks to do, you want to control your financials, and therefore the man who has gone to borrow money should suffer the consequences. It doesn't add up. And so, Mr. Speaker, even though we agree, I personally agree that we should review our contract law, it should not disadvantage one person against the other. And so, when it comes to the consideration, we will have to bring an amendment to this simple interest formula, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for your audit.
Well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do agree to this, policy, but the point I want to make here is that the issue, to cure the issue, is not to do with this policy. The cure is the indiscipline that we've had over the years on this.
Yes, to control them.
So eventually, that is what needs to be done. But then, temporarily, we can have this policy to be able to address the issue, but that will do so only temporarily. If the indiscipline doesn't stop, we will never be able to cure this. Doesn't matter what policy we have, but we need to be able to deal with the indiscipline that gets us into all these problems to do with high contract costs, to do with the judgment debt, and all these things that we get, in the end. So the issue, So you said the cure, but this is not the cure.
Allow him. Amina.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, if that is the point you're making.
No, please don't debate.
But the eventual cure is to deal with the indiscipline which has gone on for many years and not been addressed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave. Mr. Speaker, this is the second reading stage of the bill, and we debate the principle. And my argument is attacking the principle underpinning this particular bill. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana vests the executive power in the President of the Republic of Ghana. But you want Parliament to legislate on who enters into a contract on behalf of the Republic when the Constitution vests the power in the President?
I don't get it. Explain.
The executive power lies in the hands of the President of the Republic of Ghana. And Mr. Speaker, this House will legislate on a person who is to enter into a contract on behalf of the Republic, instead of the power being vested in the President by the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, posterity will be the judge, but at least will be vindicated that it is not proper for Parliament of the Republic of Ghana to make a law that will regulate a contract entered into by government on one hand, and the same law will not regulate a contract entered into by the citizens of the Republic of Ghana. It is not for any reason that the Section 17 that the Deputy Majority Leader quoted states that the contract applies to a contract entered into by the Republic of Ghana as well as a contract entered into by others. That brings uniformity. That brings uniformity. But to make a law that will discriminate in favor or against the government on one hand and the generality of the public on another hand, I am placing on record that as second reading, I, Bernard Ahiafo, I am opposed to the passage of this particular law. The Speaker, I rest my case.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter once again. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Attorney General informed us that the bill has two legs. One leg dealing with the interest, where there will be a limitation on government entering into a contract where there will be delayed interest on delayed payment calculated on compound interest, but rather it will be on simple interest. Mr. Speaker, that leg, Mr. Speaker, I support it wholeheartedly. I support it on the basis of the fact that this country is spending so much on interest on delayed payment, obviously as a result of indiscipline. Because this indiscipline has been with us for some time, and laws are made to regulate our way of life. And clearly, we've not been able to stop this indiscipline. It's only right for us to have a law that will compel the government of the day and people engaging with government to accept that interest will be paid only on simple payment, simple interest, but not on compound interest. Speaker, for that one, I wholly agree with it. The other leg that Honorable Ahiafo raised relates to the fact that the Constitution vests certain powers in the name of the President. I think it's a matter that the AG must respond to it. Because, Mr. Speaker, that, I believe, is something we need to deal with it, because we cannot be seen making laws that are unconstitutional. And above all, Mr. Speaker, I still insist that there's the need, when we get to the, the consideration stage, we need to introduce some exemptions where the district assemblies in particular will be given opportunities to enter into a contract. That, I believe, is something that we need to do. That. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader, I was going to put the question.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much. Mr. Speaker, in this House, we have passed laws that we've given independence to state institutions to undertake certain business. These are state institutions that the state has 100% stake in them. And they are not the alter egos of the state in the performance of their functions. And they have the right to enter into contract, they have the right to sue and to be sued, etc., etc. That notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, my colleague, in advancing his case against the principles of this law, submit rather forcefully that aspect where we are talking about authorized persons other than the president and all that is against the Constitution. That is his contention. I would pray him to have a look at Article 58.3. And for this purpose, I shall quote: the executive authority of Ghana shall vest in the president and shall be exercised in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. And he's right on that. But let's come straight to 3. Subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the functions conferred on the President by Clause 1 of this article may be exercised by him either directly or through officers subordinate to him. So, Mr. Speaker, the matter is settled. by him or through officers subordinate to him. The law doesn't even say authorized by him or people he has delegated those authorities to. It says or officers. Note the disjunctive effect. Is giving the authority to the president. Is talking about those authorized by him. And again, talking about those subordinate to him, meaning officers appointed by him. Mr. Speaker, this is straight matter. But, Mr. Speaker, I would not belabor. My friend, as democratic as he is, as a good barrister as he is, says that this is his opposition. He leaves the matter to posterity. I have left many matters to posterity, and posterity corrected the matter. So, Mr. Speaker, it's okay. We end it there. Thank you.
Honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate,
The constitutional argument.
honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate, all those in favour of the motion say aye. All those against say no.
Mr.
Honourable
Speaker,
members, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, there is a
Honourable members, the
constitutional
ayes have it. The motion is adopted.
An act to amend Contracts Act 1960 Act 25 to provide for the type of interest to be paid on a sum of money due to a party of a contract or transaction entered into on behalf of the Republic.
Members, the Contract Amendment Bill 2022, is it 2022 or 2023? 2022 is accordingly read a second time.
And 15. 14.
We move to 14.
Speaker, if you be pleased, we proceed to 14.
14.
Yes.
Yes. Let me invite the Attorney General. Attorney General, hold on.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, you always encourage leadership to help you manage the House. This morning, the first bill, what we just concluded, and the one you are about to take, was never discussed. In fact, the first time I saw this
Honorable
report...
Honorable Kwame.
Hold on.
Come to you.
Hold on.
Leader, I am in control. Allow me to respond to him.
No, stop that.
Oh, I am in control. Allow me to respond to him.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Buja.
Yes.
The issue was raised. We have addressed it. We have actually put on hold one of them, which according to your leader is so sensitive. So that one we have put that one on hold. But these two, your leader has given the green light that we could go ahead. That's why we are doing that.
I will take the point you've made. But let it be known, the deputy leader was not at conclave. He missed conclave. So if after conclave he made an application and was accepted, he should let the world know that he was not part of the decision as to what we should be doing on the floor today. He came later, tried to alter. That is the whole point I'm trying to make. He should make it a point to be at conclave so that he will take all these businesses at the start of the decision. He shouldn't come later and come and make an application to you to alter the order of the business, Mr. Speaker. That is the point I'm making.
Well, leader, you should make it a point to be attending conclave meetings.
Mr. Speaker, this is a House of Records. This morning, I was engaged in some other parliamentary work. Mr. Speaker, so he's right. I was unavoidably absent at conclave. He's right. However, I have not made an application to you in respect of the various items that are to be taken. And I will also urge you to remain in the chamber. If you had been here, or even when you were not here, if you had followed proceedings, you would have known that your boss has already given an indication on what your side wants to do. And he clearly said nobody made an application. He said he wants us to do 13 and 14 and place the other matter on ice. You didn't consult, you just came in, got up, and saying all these things. Well, Mr. Speaker, I leave it to posterity.
Well, well. Well, well.
Quote item 40.
It's part of the game. We have to take things lightly. Leader, Honorable Kwame Aboja, we've gone past that. So please allow us to take 14. So there's nothing to withdraw, please. So, Honorable Attorney General, you may do as the honors with
Thank you very
motion
much.
14.
Honorable Speaker, once again, I move that the Whistleblower Amendment Bill of 2023 be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker and honorable members of Parliament, the purpose of the Whistleblower Amendment Bill 2022 is to amend the present Whistleblower Act of 2006, Act 720, to substantially expand the sources of money for the Whistleblower Reward Fund and to provide a ceiling for the fund while specifying the mode of rewarding a whistleblower. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, as you are aware, Act 720 is the current legislation that governs the disclosure of information by whistleblowers in respect of corrupt practices and other unlawful conduct, and provides for the reward of whistleblowers and their protection against victimization. Mr. Speaker, one of the ways of encouraging whistleblowers is to promptly provide the monetary compensation that is provided for in the Act to enable more of such disclosures in the public interest. And so Act 720 provides for the establishment of a Whistleblower Reward Fund and to provide funds for payments of monetary rewards to these whistleblowers. However, the present legislation, the sources of monies for the fund comprise voluntary contributions to the fund and other monies allocated to the fund by Parliament. Mr. Speaker, 16 years after the passage of Act 720, the fund has not been operationalized due to the absence of a dedicated source of money for the fund, leading to a derailment of the full implementation of the Act. And therefore, the object of this bill is to expand the sources of money for the fund and provide a ceiling for the fund and to specify the mode of reward. In respect of the sources of money for the fund, this bill seeks to expand the sources to include 30% of any amount that is recovered as a result of the disclosure by a whistleblower. The inclusion of this source of money will serve as a dedicated source of money for the fund without relying on the earmarked budgetary revenue for that purpose. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to also ensure that the fund does not accumulate excess money to the detriment of budgetary revenue, the bill also provides a ceiling of 50 million Ghana cedis for the fund. Therefore, any money in excess of 50 million Ghana cedis is required to be paid into the consolidated fund, further to consultation between the minister responsible for finance and the Attorney General. Now, this recommended consultation with the Attorney General is to ensure that the Attorney General ascertains that there are no outstanding or pending payments that ought to be made before the excess money is transferred to the consolidated fund. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, with a view to enhancing transparency, the bill further provides that a whistleblower who makes a successful collaborative disclosure in areas that do not directly lead to the recovery of money is also rewarded with an amount of money that the minister responsible for finance in consultation with the Attorney General may determine. Another measure provided for in the bill is to ensure that the money that are required for payments of rewards to whistleblowers is not locked up in long-term investments. It's not locked up in long-term investments and can only be invested in short-term market instruments. According to Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, I respectfully pray and move that the House assist in attaining the objective of the bill by facilitating its passage. I thank you and move so accordingly.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairman, you may second and
Mr. Speaker,
present the committee's report.
Thank you. I second the motion, Mr. Speaker, and in so doing, I present the committee's report, and I pray that the entire report be captured by the Hansa Department. Whilst I read the last paragraph, Mr. Speaker, the committee therefore finds the proposed amendments relevant to strengthening national efforts at combating corruption. The committee accordingly recommends to the House to adopt its report and pass into law the Whistleblower Amendment Bill 2023 in accordance with Article 106 of the 1992 Constitution. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable members, the motion has been moved and it has been seconded. It is before us to discuss per, and I read again, per our standing order 127, we are supposed to do a lot of deliberation before we put it into question. So now it's before the House. Let me begin with the ranking member.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to the item number 14 on today's order paper, that the Whistleblower Amendment Bill 2023 is now read the second time. Mr. Speaker, the principle underpinning this particular bill is very clear. Mr. Speaker, I support the bill wholeheartedly. Mr. Speaker, the significance of the whistleblowers regarding combating corruption-related offences, as well as other unlawful and criminal conducts, cannot be, however, overemphasized. However, the whistleblowers can only be motivated if what is due them is released to them on time. Mr. Speaker, it is established that releases of even what Parliament has allocated to the fund under Section 20 of the Whistleblowers Act is a problem. So, the reason, the rationale behind making the Whistleblowers Act, the country is not reaping the benefit thereof. Therefore, any amendment which seeks to expand the fund to make more money available for rewarding the whistleblowers is laudable and will have to be supported. Any amendment that will lead to a timely release and timely payment of the reward of the whistleblowers is laudable. Mr. Speaker, for this reason, I support the passage of the bill into law, and I believe that when the bill is passed into law and then the fund is expanded, and then we ensure a timely release and timely payment of the reward to whistleblowers, it will go a long way to help this particular country combat corruption, recover a lot from the proceeds of corruption, and then clamp down other unlawful and criminal activities in the country. Mr. Speaker, I support the second reading of the bill.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honourable Bejura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also stand to support the motion and urge my colleagues also to support it. Mr. Speaker, as I stand to speak, I speak on behalf of African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, APNAC. Mr. Speaker, this beginning of this year, APNAC met with some stakeholders in the anti-corruption space. And one of the things that we've discussed, especially with Raj and Office for the Special Prosecutor, as well as the CSOs involved in the anti-corruption space, one of the things that they have shared with us is the fact that if we can amend the Whistleblowers Act, which was passed in 2006, and that it has outlived its usefulness. Mr. Speaker, I'm particularly happy that this amendment has come to the floor for us to amend it. Why am I happy? Because over the years, if you look at whistleblowers, people who come out to give out information, the majority of them have not been adequately satisfied by the state. And so people are reluctant to give out information about corrupt practices and graft in some establishment. And therefore, if we have a legislation amending the previous legislation that will give support to whistleblowers, especially where in that report, in your report, page 4, I've seen that the amendment, page 4, paragraph 1, where it says that whistleblowers. Okay, let me start, Mr. Speaker. The whistleblower is entitled to, within 14 days after the payment of the money into the fund, a reward of 10% of the amount that is recovered and paid into the fund. This clearly shows that there is going to be a law that will give specific direction to the government that when monies are retrieved from graft, at least some percentage will be given to the whistleblower. This will give support to as many people who have information to give out. And that will also lead to the fact that majority of people who have information will be bold enough, knowing that there will be compensation for whatever they've given out. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, I support wholeheartedly this amendment and urge my colleagues also to support it. On behalf of African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, I support it, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable, last one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this is an amendment in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, I say this because, yes, there is the need for us to encourage whistleblowers to continue the path that they are charting. Mr. Speaker, oftentimes there have been complaints that people that engage in whistleblowing, a very risky enterprise, are not rewarded adequately. And sometimes the releases does not come on time. And that is why I'm of the view that the bill has come at the right time. Suffice to say that aside that, there is the need for us to ensure that those recoveries, a percentage is set aside also promptly and be released promptly. Mr. Speaker, if you were to allow the Ministry of Finance in particular to keep this in the bigger consolidated fund, it's often very difficult because of the fungibility of money for them to make money available on time to finance the activities of whistleblowers. Mr. Speaker, I'm also of the view that there's the need for us to go a little bit further by exempting the amount that we are giving to whistleblowers for the purposes of payment of taxes. So, Mr. Speaker, when we get to the second reading, I will introduce, when we get to the consideration stage, Mr. Speaker, I will introduce an amendment where I believe that we should exempt the proceeds going to whistleblowers from the payment of taxes. Mr. Speaker, this is something we should encourage. It should be something worthwhile so that people will be encouraged to do what others see it as a very risky venture. I believe that is something that we should encourage as a country, so we can recover some of the amount that we are losing on a very large scale. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, honorable members, at the conclusion of the debate.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the atmosphere in the country regarding parliamentary proceedings cannot be undermined. We are going to take a decision based on the second reading. I strongly suggest that we don't do anything that will be a subject matter of litigation tomorrow before the Supreme Court. So my suggestion, based on the principle enshrined in the case of Justice Abdullahi, is that looking at the House, we do not have the number to take decision. Because whatever we do here will be challenged out there. That was what I stood to remind you about when you were putting the question on the first leg that we have just done. The Speaker, just to remind you,
So, Honorable, are you going to say the same to the Committee of the Whole report?
It will depend on the mood of the House when we get it. He's made an application, so we are waiting for your.
Anyway, I'm suspending the House for 30 minutes. Honorable, have you abandoned? If he hasn't abandoned it, then...
Mr. Speaker, he just signaled to me that he's reluctantly abandoned it. So we can make progress.
Okay. Then, honorable members, as many as are in favor of the motion listed forth in today's order paper, say aye. I'm putting the question again. All those in favor, say aye. All those against, say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. I'm sitting here, I never saw the Deputy Minister opening her mouth.
An act to amend the Whistleblower Act 2006, Act 720, to expand the sources of money for the fund, provide the ceiling for the fund, specify the mode of rewarding a whistleblower, and for related matters.
The Whistleblower Bill 2023, as amended, is accordingly read a second.
Speaker, may I seek your leave for us to take item 9 and take it instead of the chair of the Committee of the Whole. Speaker, with your leave.
Yes, who is taking it? Oh, very well. Go ahead.
Speaker, may I seek your leave to take item 8C, which is advertised in your name as the chair of the Committee of the Whole. I seek your leave to lay it.
Very well. Leave granted. You may go ahead.
Report of the Committee of the Whole on the proposed formula for the distribution of the Ghana Education Trust Fund for the year 2023.
Honorable members, the report is duly presented. It is for distribution to honorable members. Now we move to motion 9. Yes.
Speaker, I rise to move that item number 9, which is a procedural motion, be moved. I so move.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Honorable members, this is procedural motion. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. All those against say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Now we move to 10th, the substantial motion, the substantive motion.
Speaker, I rise to move that this Honourable House adopts the report of the Committee of the Whole on the proposed formula for the distribution of the Ghana Education Trust Fund, GET Fund, for the year 2023. Speaker, in so doing, I present the report and I seek answer to capture the entirety of it, whilst I limit myself to just portions of the report. Speaker, allocation for the year 2023. For the fiscal year 2023, an amount of 1,869,563,000 281 Ghana cedis was allocated to the fund, a reduction of over 28% compared to 2022. Such sectoral allocation. For the period under review, tertiary subsector has been allocated 7.84%, which translates to some 170 million Ghana cedis of a total expected inflow from the national budget for 2023 to support a range of activities and interventions. MP's emergency project monitoring. It is proposed that members of parliament will receive support from the fund to enable them undertake projects in their constituencies and also monitor projects in their various constituencies. For this year, an amount of 31,625,000 Ghana cedis, representing some 1.46% of total spending, has been allocated for that purpose. Debt service accounts. The committee observed that a total amount of some 545,202,000 was allocated for the servicing of the Dachi bonds issued by the fund for the year 2023. The committee noted that as part of the debt restructuring program, as agreed with the IMF, the Dachi bonds has now been classified as a public debt and now forms part of the government of Ghana's debt. As a result, the GET fund is no longer responsible for the service of the debt and therefore ought not to be part of activities for the fund for the year 2023. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee, having carefully examined the distributed formula of expected inflows into the fund for the year 2023, notes that the formula takes into account the promotion of TVETs, completion of SHS projects, provision of basic schools, promotion of computer studies and technical education, amongst others. The committee accordingly recommends the House to adopt its report and approve the proposed formula for the distribution of the Ghana Education Trust Fund. Speaker, I so present. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the motion has been moved. Honourable Minority Leader.
The Speaker, I rise to second the motion. And in doing so, the Speaker, I wish to place on record that the Speaker, inasmuch as the committee recommended that this House approves the formula before us, the Speaker, one critical point that was discussed, the Speaker, I have not found it in the report. It has to do with the fact that members expressed the need for government to present to this House a policy on government distribution of laptops to be used as a way to replace textbooks. The Speaker, this is particularly important because members will need to at least apprise ourselves with government drive as to the replacement of the laptops. Most particularly, that there is not every school that will have access to electricity. And what exactly is government trying to do to push in those areas as well? Mr. Speaker, we were told that laptops will cost approximately 1.5 billion cedis. And now the formula is allocating 740 million Ghana cedis. 750 million Ghana cedis. I thought I saw 740. 740 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, that is what we have here. Special SHS TVET digitization innovation program, 740 million Ghana cedis. That is what has been allocated here. Speaker, my agreement is, as at the committee of the whole, my agreement is for us to ring fence it, whilst we ensure that government present to us a policy on this matter, for us to understand the procurement processes, the cost per unit, and all of that. Mr. Speaker, the report did not capture that. It is important for me to state that in the coming days, it's important for the minister responsible for education to bring that policy before us and for us to understand the processes that they've gone through in taking this. And also, Mr. Speaker, in terms of distribution, are they going to cover half of the country now that they are only paying half of it? or they are going to cover the entire country over a period of time. Speaker, that details are not forthcoming, and so the minister must appear before us and to give us the details. Speaker, again, the issue relating to the GET fund allocating part of their revenues or receivables for the purposes of paying the Archibald. Speaker, I strongly object to it because, Speaker, yes, I've seen that it has been changed, but it's also important for us to put on record that now this is a responsibility of the Ministry of Finance. The area where Ministry of Finance or Government of Ghana allows some of these statutory funds to borrow on their books is long gone. GET fund cannot continue the part of the Archie bond. It is now a government debt. The servicing should be for government, and GET fund should not use their receivables to finance it. Speaker, it's important for us to put this on record because it's clearly important. I have seen that we have allocated part of those receivables for the completion of SHS ongoing projects, new basic schools program projects, construction of KG classrooms, and water and sanitation for schools, particularly boreholes and toilets. Speaker, this is important. So I think I can see proper allocation of these resources that was going to pay the Dachi bond. So Ministry of Finance should take note, and when they are programming their debt servicing as part of the media review, they should recognize that GET fund is not the one to be paying this. The Committee of the Whole agreed that this is a responsibility of the central government, the Ministry of Finance, and it should be paid from the consolidated fund. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion and urge my colleagues also to support the motion. But Mr. Speaker, I have some reservations and some comments on your committee's report. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether your committee decided to cut and paste whatever has been submitted by the GET Fund board. 7 of your committee's report, you have table 3 there, Mr. Speaker. If you add completed projects from 2017 to date, the total amount given us there is 2,405 projects that has been completed. Mr. Speaker, any mathematical student, when adding, you add the pre-2017, tertiary 159 plus 535 plus 22 plus 729 will not give you 1,344. It will give you 1,445. Then when you come to 2017 to date, tertiary 0, second cycle 519, E-block 14, E-model, model schools 2, TVET 2, and basic 423 will not give you 913, but 960. Mr. Speaker, if we are using the figure given here on this table, the total pre-2017, 1,344 plus 2017 to date, 913, will give you 2,257 units completed, and not 2,405 completed. Mr. Speaker, I don't know where these figures were conjured from. And I'm surprised your committee has decided just to cut and paste, what was submitted by the GET Fund board. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, let's do the correction if we have to pass it, because this is a house of record. The pre-one, the total amount should be 1,445, 1,445. And 2017 to date should be 960. And if you add the two together, it will be 2,405. And that's the corrected figure. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, it is also deceiving. It's not proper to state in page 6, paragraph 6.1, that A total of 204 projects have been completed during the period under review. The period under review is 2022. And you cannot say that the pre-2017 plus after 2017 will be under review. We are looking at 2022 report, what has been completed. If it's a 3-year program, the 3-year should be from 20, just as being stated, from 2019 to 2022. How many projects have been completed from 2019 to 2022? So we cannot state, as reported in this report, that the committee observed that in 2022 the fund put in place a 3-year project aimed at completing all of its abandoned projects. As at 31st December 2022, a total of 2,405 projects have been completed during the period under review. And then you come here, you have pre, which is about 1,444, and then you have post 2017, and you are telling us that it's 3-year period under review. What are we talking about, Mr. Speaker? Can the committee, the chairman of the committee, maybe correct these things and tell us exactly how many projects have been completed within these 3 years? Then we can now approve the formula. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Pudu.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. I had risen for a long time during the committee the committee consideration stage.
That's why I deem it fit to give you the opportunity now.
Yes, so you see that those same things linger on, even onto the the main report submitted for us. Mr. Speaker, you see the format of the presentation does not look good for us, Ghana's parliament. If this report goes out as it is, it will dent our image. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is this. You have revenue allocated 1,869 plus million Ghana cedis. And you are going to recover unpaid amount of the previous year to add to this, amounting to 619,690,000. And you are deducting this recovery from the total revenue. The question is there shortfall recovery an expenditure or an inflow? That is the question. That's what I wanted to draw your attention to, so that they could quickly do the adjustment before bringing the report back. But I didn't have the opportunity. But it is fundamentally incorrect for us to add recovery of an amount which is coming into Get Fund kitty as an expenditure. The money is coming in. So if you look at it from a very simple perspective, this year the government is going to give 1.869 billion. Last year they did not release 619 million. And they are saying that this year we will give you that 69 million, if that is their pledge, in addition to the new 1.8 billion. So how can you deduct what they are going to give you from what you are due? It is wrong. Absolutely wrong. You don't do that. It is rather an addition. So that will definitely take back the inflow to Get Fund to about 1.4 something, 2.4 billion. And above that, that is rather where we should be starting from. As for the 619 million, it is recovery and it is an inflow. You cannot deduct an inflow from the present revenue, rather. That is wrong. Mr. Speaker, I have further added the subtotals of the expenditures, and pardon me to read them out. Tertiary education, subtotal 180 million. Second cycle education, 912 million. Basic education, 270 million plus. Others, 147.5 million. The subtotal for MPs, 39,875,000. When you add these amounts, you get 1,549,873,000. That is the expenditure. So I am at a loss. If you are taking 1.5 million from 1.869 plus 619, I am at a loss as to why we will have a shortfall. Because the inflows are definitely higher than the expected outflows. They are higher. Now, there is talk of 300 million being given as deficit financing. It's most incomprehensible to me. What is the $300 million that the government or the Ministry of Finance has pledged to give? Is it payment of part of the 2021 arrears, which is 740 something million? Is it part payment? Or is it a restoration of some of the capped amounts? So I'm at a loss how this thing is presented. And Mr. Speaker, you see, there is no deficit and there is no funding gap. If we are to add the amount to be allocated for the year and the amount expected to be recovered from the ministry, then we don't have any deficit at all to be funded from anywhere. Because that's about 2.4 million, and we are spending 1.5 billion, 2.4 billion, and we are spending 1.5 billion. So there isn't any deficit. That is why I think that we should redo this thing. We are too much in a haste. I think that if the Minister of Education can, give us a little time, we go through this paper properly and do the right thing. Because, people came from Uganda the other day to come and study how we have been doing our things. If they take away that type of document, we will be disgraced. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Well. Honorable Podo, let me remark that your concerns have been taken on board. You direct the and Honorable Bejura, your issue has also been noted. We will direct it to the administrator of the Common Fund to realign some of these things. Please. So let's conclude. I'm tired, I must confess. I've been sitting since morning.
Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage my colleague that when we have this understanding, we should allow us to have this. Mr. Speaker, the point I would like to make, I'll take it from where the minority leader started from. I believe the amount set aside for the digitalization should be ring-fenced until the time that the minister comes back to the House to explain the policy, the reason behind the policy. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we are talking about, if people throw out figures, 1.2 billion, 1.5 billion. We don't even know whether this is an amount based on a contract sum or a budget for some items. Mr. Speaker, if it's a contract, which processes were used to procure these items? If it's already been procured, we would encourage the minister to furnish this House with details of the procurement that was used. What is the unit cost of these tablets? People call it laptop, but we are told it's tablet. We are told the government says these tablets will be cloud-based, so they can automatically update the tablets. The question is, Mr. Speaker, who is going to get this tablet? And those who are going to benefit, are they going to keep it? Or is it still a property of government of Ghana and you need to use it and bring it back? Who is going to be able to maintain this tablet? Mr. Speaker, the issues surrounding this tablets are so complex and unknown to the members in this house. Mr. Speaker, who, if this is going to be supplied, we have over 1 million possible beneficiaries. Mr. Speaker, has the supplier got a track record of doing something of this scale? And does the supplier have the capacity to maintain these tablets? And how long are these tablets supposed to last as far as government is concerned? We also like to know from the minister, is there any country in this world where textbooks are only found on tablets, getting rid of books? Mr. Speaker, we should encourage children to still read books. I do have communities in Adaklu where telephone connectivity and electricity does not exist. Are they going to be part of beneficiaries of this? If they do, how are they going to charge it? If there's no telephone connectivity, how will you use the cloud system to update the equipment you're talking about? Mr. Speaker, I believe what we are talking about here is self-inflicted, Mr. Speaker. You, myself, and the people of this country will pay over 4 billion cedis towards Get Fund this year alone. Over 4 billion. Why are we penny pinching, pretending that Get Fund is broke or we don't have money? When the Ghanaian is going to pay 4 billion through Get Fund alone, the government have come to a draconian policy saying that they are doing capping. And out of that, you are not giving the money that Ghanaians pay towards education. And then we are here penny pinching, saying, well, let's allocate this, Mr. Speaker. The solution to this, Mr. Speaker, is for government to allow Get Fund to have access to their over 4 billion Ghana cedi. They don't need government to provide any extra money from the exchequer or from the finance ministry. So, Mr. Speaker, my biggest concern is this tablets. We have been hearing things, and the Vice President promising this here and there. This house want to know, have you procured this tablet already? If yes, who is the provider, the provider of this tablets? How much does it cost? What is the capacity of this person to supply and maintain? And what is the quality? Because we know that one teacher, one laptop that was supplied, many teachers are still complaining about the quality of the equipment they've got. So what is the difference? So, Mr. Speaker, when we approve this, the minister who is a member of this house must necessarily come back to this house to furnish us with these details. So this approval will be subject to... I speak to support this motion. I speak to support this motion.
I'm putting the question. I'm tired. Okay, I'm giving.
Speaker. Speaker, I am rising to contribute to the debate for the approval of that sum of money for the Ghana Education Trust Fund. And Mr. Speaker, for me personally, there are not Dumpre and there are Blackwest. It is always with some emotions when we discuss this subject of Get Fund, because together with you, it was our collective struggles and strife that got this fund established. I still recall even being chased at the University of Cape Coast and thrown water when I went to debate and say that we should liberalize higher education to allow for private participation in higher education, together with all sharing at the time. I still remember people pelting water, including some of our colleagues opposite. At the time, I was NUC's president. So it was this passion that I've come to contribute to the debate. And Mr. Speaker, may I just refer you to not directly the committee's report, but the fund formula which was distributed. and I come to paragraph 2111. And Mr. Speaker, there it says tertiary subsector has been allocated 7.84%. Mr. Speaker, this defeats the primary purpose, even if you have changed it. Let me have the percentage in the final formula. Mr. Speaker, GET Fund was to complement higher education. At the time, we said that tuition must remain the responsibility of government. We wanted to expand access to quality, relevant higher education. To allocate just this amount, Mr. Speaker, in my view, is woefully inadequate. And this House, and Mr. Speaker, that is why I have come to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, you recall that President Nana Addo Dankwa, when he came on State of the Nation address, strongly said that he did not borrow recklessly. I want to remind him that when it comes to mortgaging GET Fund, he was reckless, because the amount of money being allocated today to service the Daiichi debt far more exceeds even what GET Fund will get to work for 2023. So whatever it is, that is irresponsible, and that's reckless. The numbers show. And Mr. Speaker, the Ghanaian economy will suffer from a growth anemia. When I say growth anemia, those who understand medicine will do. But Mr. Speaker, again, why I have rushed back to contribute to this debate is that I'm concerned that Parliament of Ghana will sit down for the IMF to want to do an exercise oversight over statutory funds. That would be an indictment on the Parliament of Ghana. And therefore, this House must sit up when it comes to evaluation and review of monies allocated to all the statutory funds. Mr. Speaker, I'm holding my copy of the IMF final document. And in a paragraph 36, it reads, and I quote, GET Fund, Road Fund, and District Assembly Common Fund have started reporting provisional spending budgets in Hyperon. I too will understand that economics word called Hyperon. At a disaggregated level to use all functionalities of GIPMIS for spending execution, including allotments, issuance of payment warrants, and actual payments prior action. So today, IMF is coming to exercise oversight over GET Fund. And the Parliament of Ghana is gone to sleep. We have slept over this right. Statutory funds are just disbursed anyhow. Look at common fund. When we do a statutory fund, you go to the district. Bola. I hope I find an English word for it. This sanitation thing. They are everywhere. The assemblies are dysfunctional. We are told that monies have been allocated. So, Mr. Speaker, my concern is that the Parliament of Ghana, we shouldn't wait to be indicted. This is in the IMF report. But I support it, because now they will have to report how this disbursement are done. But a matter of concern, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, when you come to Mr. Speaker, when you come to, I'm still relying heavily on what was distributed this morning. Mr. Speaker, I go to page 6, and it reads, for the fiscal year 2023, an amount of 1,869,563,281 Ghana cedis, 1.869, was allocated to the fund, a reduction of over 28% compared to 2022. Somebody must explain that to me, that VAT returns will dwindle and decline in a year 2023 against an improvement in 2022. And the economists and finance people in this House, we need to know if GET Fund is 2.5%, how much does that accrue to the state? And insist that that is what is allocated to the state. No, I know, but you go and make a deduction of the capping percentage, and you still will have numbers that does not tally with the actual returns. So that's why I'm saying that we need some forensic examination of how much is due get fund. Once it's a statutory fund, I can say so for all the statutory funds. How much are they entitled to? Let's cap it. How much in actual terms are they entitled to? It's not for the Minister for Finance to just sit down and do a realignment of figures. Because, Mr. Speaker, if I go further even into my record, one of it that is being reported in this house, we have been told that a certain amount of 300,000 is being allocated in order to meet the particular figure. So, what figure are we approving? If you say 2.169 billion, 2.169 billion, and as the whip said, when it comes to the other matters, we should interrogate who is supplying what at what cost in terms of the staffs. Then we compare it to the unit cost and even ask questions the nature of the procurement that has been done for the purpose of these supplies. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's becoming a norm in Ghana. When is the last time you saw in the Daily Graphic or any publication any advertisement of a procurement exercise being undertaken in Ghana? We must be concerned. All these procurements by our law are to be done publicly. When is the last time you saw in the dailies advertisement being done for the purpose of procurement for many of this? That is the disservice we are doing to Ghana and not ensuring and guaranteeing value for money. Then, Mr. Speaker, members of parliament allocation, I should commend some members. I can't say all members, but at least, Mr. Speaker, some MPs are more functional and effective on the ground than some district assemblies when it comes to disbursement of these statutory funds. MPs are particular because, Mr. Speaker, we fear we'll be voted out. So we are doing our best to satisfy constituents in meeting the minimum requirement when it comes to this. So the allocation, you have to look at it. And when you say there is a funding gap, and you say 1.8 million, you say 2.1 million, there is 300,000. 300 million. An assurance is not enough, particularly for a minister for finance who even assures you he's going and he's not gone and you haven't taken over. You are forewarned. So the 300, yes, you have said so, but that's not enough. No. And you are saying that he's realigning it from where? Mr. Speaker, this house, we are not taking our budget oversight duties more responsibly. Forgive me. What is the essence of appropriation? Why is it that when it comes to appropriation, we say that every line, 85,000, 1 million, 100,000, appropriation line by line. You are just saying realignment of 300 million. Where he is to take it from, its consequence on that other appropriation is not known to this house. That is not budget oversight. Parliament must sit up in the exercise of our oversight responsibility, particularly over financial matters. And finally, as we have seen here, Daichi, I recall even majority leader that day contributed positively. This house, you've seen the U.S. Congress debate a budget ceiling. This parliament must have a ceiling for borrowing. And this parliament must insist that no government, and when I say no government, including a future NDC government, there must be a rule of thumb. You are losing 2024, so there's a future NDC government. Very possible. I see now you dress very presidential because of your new aspiration. That's why you are not in the Jakarta dress. Mr. Speaker, here and the Honourable Minister for Education, I don't know who is ahead of who. And when things will handle it. But Mr. Speaker, I support the principle of get fund, but this 300 million they have to explain. Procurement and value for money must be done by this parliament. I'm disappointed that we are sitting for IMF to come and be demanded how allotment and expenditure is done with statutory funds when the Parliament of Ghana is sleeping over all those matters and just allocating money, and we don't even go to the field to appreciate the extent of work. Then, Mr. Speaker, in concluding, the cost of uncompleted projects. And you see, Mr. Speaker, is the effect of the Dutchy reckless borrowing. When you borrow, and now you are saying that your overambitious desire to complete uncompleted projects in 3 years cannot be achieved. Its effect is that many of the uncompleted projects may round to ground zero. When I say ground zero, it means the minimum cost invested by the state will become waste. If for 3-5 years it's not done, even under IMF, they are struggling as government. Out of 44 projects, only some 12-14 projects may see the light of day. What happens to projects that have been completed? So, 2028. So, Mr. Speaker, GET Fund, we support the allocations. I'm disappointed what's going into tertiary education. And the universities must sit up and realign their training to our national development priorities. Yet, even as a country, we don't have a national development plan so adopted by all of it. We don't know our human capital requirement. We are just training and not training people for the 21st century. So, Mr. Speaker, this uncompleted project, and then, Minister, you are here. There are some contractors who feel discriminated against, that they started GET Fund projects long ago. They haven't been paid or compensated, and you are concentrating and paying on new projects. If it is true, address it. If it is untrue, dismiss my assertion. But this is what I hear across the country from many contractors who feel that work they have done, they worked for the government of Ghana. Government is a continuum. Look for it and let them complete it. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, the minister is aware. Even many of the projects you have allocated, because of your government running down the economy, costs have escalated. Costs have escalated. And therefore, contracts you are awarded for 8 million may be worth 10, 12 million, depending upon the current cost of it. Mr. Speaker, coming here, contractors talk to me. In fact, if the honorable, I won't mention a name. One of them called me yesterday and said, Haruna, now call Kacheche say, the road contractor, you know him, but I'll protect his name. He called me, he knows him. I said, Haruna, don't worry for. Then I said, oh, Miwa Yendi, who in the parliament? He said, so why are you not in parliament? Kacheche said, Parliament we haven't been paid. This is the contractor. But as I said, Che knows it. So I will end here, Mr. Speaker, supporting the motion, but value for money. The people of Ghana expect us to demand and ensure value for money, lawful, open public procurement processes that guarantee that at minimum cost to the state. And Parliament policing this and not leaving it to an
Honorable Leader, I'm tired. We have to. I'm closing. Ahmed, very brief.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I'm just going to be very brief because I'll speak on just completion of tertiary ongoing projects, no allocation. Completion of SHS ongoing projects, no allocation. New SHS targeted and emergency project, no allocation. Completion of community day SHS, no allocation. No allocations made for sectors. And this is a paragraph 6.5 from the report. Then, Mr. Speaker, you go to paragraph 7.0. And that must also be stated in the formula before we approve. Before you put the question for approval. Because that portion must be amended. That's what I mean, Mr. Speaker. Because once you approve this, Mr. Speaker, it becomes an authoritative piece. Therefore, everything that we are doing, we must make sure that we mean what we do and do what we mean. The House did not recommend that 545 million Ghana cedis be taken out. But the House recommended that this, since it is part of the public debt restructuring program, that amount must be allocated to other programs. That is what we agreed on in this House. So it must also be stated in the formula. These are the two key things I want us to bring our attention our minds to before we approve the formula. Other than that, somebody will say this house did not do a good job. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Very well. Yes, Fana.
Yes, Speaker, thank you very much. Let me begin off by commending the former minority leader who started off by going back to his days at the notes. I recollect all the struggles he went through. And Speaker, we show solidarity to him. He was a hero then. He was a real hero then. So I think that our senior colleague made a point. I don't think that he meant malice. But it's important we rephrase that statement. It is not a statement of fact that we, as a Parliament of the Republic, are yielding we are yielding our responsibility of oversight to the IMF. That cannot be true. It cannot be true. And I respect Honorable Haruna Idrisu so much. He knows I hold him in high esteem. But that statement was made in excess. It is not the case. Because if you look at how we have, the path we have moved and the delay this consideration of the formula has gone through up to this stage, you should tell our senior colleague that really the committee and this Parliament has done some good work. And you should rather be praising the House for its good work that it has done. For instance, and I can commend the Honorable Ato too for his and a leader of the House. The 545 million that was allocated for debt servicing account, it was our decision and as our input to say that no, that money cannot go to service debt, but we should rather reallocate that. And we have already agreed that we will approve this subject to all the amendments. One of the critical amendments that we should also we should amend that portion of the report, and the new rendition should be that that amount has been reallocated, and the specifics were given to the clerks, so they should provide those specifics in terms of how the reallocation of the 545 was done. That's, for me, is something that you should commend this House for. So it cannot be the case that we are yielding to the IMF. So we are, again, on project funds, clearly there was a reduction. It took the intervention of this House for the needful to be done, for a coupon increment to move from some 19 million to proceed and do the needful, and also urge the clerks to do all the necessary tidying up of the report to reflect the views of the House. I thank you.
Very well. So, honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is as many as are in favour, pending that the issues that have been raised with respect to some of the alignment will be done. All those in favour, say aye. All those against, say no. Honourable members, the ayes have it. The motion is hereby adopted, pending some of the alignment that the administrator and the secretariat will do. I thank you.
Speaker.
Yes, leader.
Speaker, I think at the heart of the consideration this morning was the matter relating even to the 740. As we're only going to serve one half of the required quantity, what to do with the remaining half? I thought the position that we had adopted was that in the mid-year review, the minister should consider providing for the remaining half. Right. And Speaker, just to make that point, that all this is also subject to that. That in the mid-year review, the remaining half should also be handled by the minister. Thank you very much.
Very well. So we'll bring proceedings to a close. But before we adjourn, let me thank members for cooperating with me. We've gone beyond, it's almost 6 o'clock. So we thank all of you for your cooperation. We are coming back tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. I thank you once again.